says we're live, but I'm not
All
seeing
right.
anything yet. I'm waiting for
Well,
it
I don't
to,
know.
how this works. Oh man, are we live? Come on.
With Memorex. Ah,
Oh geez, we are live.
what do you
Yes.
mean? Why are you saying "oh geez"?
Oh geez.
Oh
So some
gee.
people are here
Okay, good.
saying hello.
They can.
Hello.
Hello. They can listen
Hello.
to me get mad at you for the terrible movies I've watched because of you.
It's not my fault. Hello,
It is your
Stevie.
fault.
It's not my
Hi,
fault.
Stevie.
It's
Stevie,
not.
there was a girl in a Halloween costume that she was dressed up as Stevie. I saw she had a Descendants shirt on.
Yeah. Yeah, she wasn't trick or treating though.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. How was
Yeah.
that show? How was that show, by the way?
Absolutely terrific. One of the best
I
times
was
I've ever seen them.
I was jealous as hell. I've never seen them.
It was excellent. Well, they should be touring next year.
Yeah, I'm never gonna go anywhere. I mean, I went to that one shit. I went to the
Oh,
cat. Hello, Scott.
I
Scott,
guess you're up,
hey,
Scott.
happy Halloween for fuck's sake. Scott's a proponent of the word fuck, and I agree wholeheartedly. That there
Right.
should be more cursing in fandom because everything is so fucked. God. I gotta say though, man, I was like, so. I mean, I don't want to get too real world in this shit, but I was amazed Bolsonaro was voted out. Hopefully, that fucker will take a walk and not pull a stunt. They had the police blocking voters. I mean, I'm looking forward to that in a week and a half.
Yeah, we don't live in good times.
No, we don't. I mean, did we ever? No, but
We cared less, I guess.
yeah, you remember a time in life when you didn't know who the Secretary of State was,
Yeah.
let alone the Secretary of Education, right? Yay! I want to list to Scott. Scott's. There's a bunch of games Scott's involved with. I think one's the Ain't Slayed Nobody, and I haven't been drawing because I want to listen to it. But I haven't been playing. I haven't been able. One of the things I want to do is get like decent internet and a computer and a microphone and shit. So one day maybe I could start playing games again because I'm never leaving the house. What are you doing, Winky? Winky, don't do that. Whatever you do, don't do that. Hold on, sorry.
Okay.
Shit, Winky.
So how's everybody's Halloween?
Yeah, I hope folks had a better Halloween than I did because I just watched a movie that Paul provided.
It's not. You're fuck you. Because first of all, you don't have to watch these movies. Don't get live on the internet and throw me under a fucking bus.
I'm not throwing you under a bus, although that would be cool looking in a movie, right?
What if I was wearing this?
What if they throw the dummy under the bus? They roll over a dummy.
And this would be on fire and it would roll.
You haven't, yeah, that would be actually very good. You haven't been posting dummies in horror and action movies.
I have not seen a dummy or a mannequin or a stuffed shirt with blankets thrown out of a building or a window in months. It's really shocking.
That sucks. You got to watch. What's the amazing kung fu film where they throw dummies off mountains?
Super Chan.
Super Chan.
Super Chan. I watched that a couple of months ago. Yeah, and they have
dummies
dummies on wires.
Oh, that's great. Reverse
so
dummies.
It's so good.
Reverse dummies. So the movie in question that I just watched it while eating a bagel because I eat good. Oh my god, my glasses really are screwed up. They're like that's interesting.
Well, what do you?
they're slightly sideways or something.
Are your ears fucked up?
Maybe, but the what do you call the handlebars on glasses? I can't even think.
Oh man, this is a great old man moment.
I don't know what are they called? The shit.
I think they're the arms or the I don't know. Does it matter? I don't agree with that, but thank you.
What are the ear part of the Winky? Stop! Winky is always attacking glasses in that. Stop legs.
But that might be across the pond. We might not.
Yeah. It's
call it a boot.
At a boot sale.
A boot
at your lip.
Oh Jesus!
At your flat. Oh my god! What did I just watch? Oh, so I watched. Speaking of the UK, I finally tracked down a Pete Walker movie that I never saw.
Okay.
The House of Whipcord.
Okay.
which wasn't great, but wasn't
Yeah.
bad. It was, I mean, I still find it fascinating that Pete Walker says, "Oh, I didn't put any political or social messages in my movies. They're just exploitation movies, blah blah blah." And they're all about the judicial system, and they're all about the class systems and
Right.
morals. I'm like, he's got more overt subtext in his horror movies than most
Subtext
people.
is for cowards.
Subtext is for cowards, and I know what I just read. They said something about, is there anybody who's influenced by it? He's got the fake interview, the fake Garth Marenghi interviews are going out.
Right.
Book,
Right.
Terratome. He said something like, have you influenced anybody? He says yes, and I'm suing them all.
That's great.
There's a really good interview at the Guardian. I think it's my 15th free article that they're guilting me about not giving them money over. I'm like, I'm not giving anybody money. The world's ending. I'm keeping my money till the last day. Ow! Cat's biting me. So House of Whipcord was good, and a good 30% of it, maybe 40% of it, is because of Sheila Keith.
Okay.
Just like a lot of his movies, especially Frightmare, which she's amazing in. And I did not know that Sheila Keith was known as a comic actress, as a kind of like authority or maternal figure, I guess. I'm not sure if I'm reading it right. And that she's like the scariest thing in all the Pete Walker movies. She's in The Comeback,
Yeah.
which is not bad.
Yeah.
For Jack Jones. Well, for Jack Jones being in it.
Wow.
Because come on. He's like a glass of milk. He's always really boring. But no, The Comeback's got some really good creepy moments, like most Pete Walker movies. The ending doesn't work for me, but Frightmare works for me almost all the way through.
Yeah.
That's the one with the crazy parents.
Right.
And House of Whipcord is kind of fascinating because it's like it's a private prison being run in the middle of nowhere in this old abandoned prison, which is an amazing building. It really was a prison. And 4 lunatics running a prison for wayward girls. And it's weird. It's a weird movie. It's a little all over the place, but Sheila Keith is fantastic in it, as usual.
Oh,
Hi, Mandy. Happy Halloween. Hope you had a decent day. Gave candy to the bugs.
and yeah.
I just got finished watching the first movie that I've watched fast forwarding or clicking through it, because I normally don't. That I'm uptight, and I will watch the worst movies. Hi kitty cat. All the way through at the regular speed, just because I am compulsive.
Right. It's an issue with you.
It is an issue with me. It's the Mangler issue. We always.
I remember in the 90s, or late 80s, I had made a vow that if I started a book, if I read one page of a book, I had to finish it.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Yeah.
And then I got to something. I think honestly, it was the Church of the Subgenius book, and I'm like, I can't read this anymore. I'm losing my mind. So okay, but
I have problems with that.
I'm curious what movie this is that you're talking about.
Well, this is how you see. I'm building tension, unlike any movie. This movie did not.
Tension. Okay.
It's funny because I just read something horrible. I told Sarah a year or two ago. I asked her to get me the Crabs books. I forget the guy something.
Ian Smith.
Okay.
Ian Smith,
They're terrible. They are as terrible as people say. But
did you? What the fuck were you expecting with them? Did you expect them to just commentary about crabs or something?
No, but I thought they'd be about what they are. That they'd be Tom Morrissey like, which is
Oh, that's slander.
They'd be Garth Marenghi like.
Okay.
And although I couldn't get through the second one, So but she had put on on my Kindle one of the books he wrote that's non-crab, out of his crab oeuvre,
right.
called The Woods, and I suffered through it, and it's one of the worst things I've ever read in my fucking life. It was just like, it's like, anyway. So the movie called Science Crazed. Crazed.
Right. You got through that, huh? I turned it off after 10 minutes. It's tough. I'll do it one day, but I was tired.
It's it might be the worst horror movie I've ever seen in my life. Well, here's the thing. It's an 80-something minute movie. I watched it in 2 minutes. And here's the thing. I didn't miss anything. Because you can click a minute ahead and it's the same scene, or it's the same scene repeated.
I'm sorry, what's the name of it again? Science what?
Science Crazed.
Science Crazed, right.
There is no hyphen.
I believe it's a modern telling of
Frankenstein.
Of Frankenstein, badly.
Yeah, it begins at the Shelley Institute, which is a bunch of apartments.
But it's a shot on video. It's a low budget. I mean, I'm not even sure if it's regional. I didn't finish it, so I didn't wind up watching the whole thing.
It's not regional because the filmmakers were kicked out of 3 states while making.
Oh, that's not nice.
It is possibly the worst horror movie I've ever seen. And that includes Things, and it turns out it was distributed by the people who distributed Things. It's a Canadian nightmare.
Right. This is the film we're talking about.
The only reason it has a 3.6 is because some idiot put a 10 up there as a joke. Okay, you see the photos, the set of photos there? No, the second one is your monster. That's the Fiend. He has Spock. That's him. That's the biggest effect in the movie.
Oh.
They reuse almost every shot in this movie. They showed multiple times. It is 80-something. It's worse than the Beast of Yucca Flats. It's worse than Things. But looking this movie up led me to a movie that's supposed to be even worse called Heavy Metal Massacre. And since we've seen so many heavy metal horror movies, apparently this one's also unwatchable. Heavy Metal Massacre. And it stars a guy who supposedly is a professional wrestler who made a video in the Los Angeles morgue.
Oh shit, this looks bad. This one. Holy shit.
Supposed to be an hour and a half of this guy, and it also loops scenes, it also loops dialogue, and it's just him at a Rhode Island heavy metal hangout, and then he takes people home and kills them. And he supposedly almost really hurt one of the actresses by hitting her in the head with a sledgehammer.
Top cast is one person without a picture.
They don't. Isn't that amazing? I don't think there's any reviews. I mean, that's pretty great, right? They don't even have those pictures of everyone.
But it looks like it's a good cover.
Yeah, it looks good, right?
Yeah. It's
got an all metal explosive soundtrack. It's got a worse rating than Science Crazed. Science Crazed is I never jump forward on movies. It doesn't have one. It does not have a Flag on the Moon line because it only has about 40 lines. It has less dialogue than Beast of Yucca Flats. The entire movie is looped. It doesn't care when people talk. The voices all seem to have been done by 2 people, one male, one female. I honestly believe that the guy who made this did a bunch of the voices. It's the sequence. My cat is putting her head into my soda glass. Winky. There's a sequence in here that is, I can't even say infamous because so few people have seen this film and commented on it.
Right.
There's the movie has like 5 minutes of plot, and then the rest of the movie is the Fiend stalking and killing people in the same apartment building.
Now we're back to talking about
Science Crazed.
Science Crazed. The Canadian.
I haven't forwarded through Heavy Metal Massacre yet.
Right.
I've just discovered it. So yeah, that guy he's got ketchup all over his shirt or something like that, and his bandages around his face. He kind of looks like, if you look at the picture of him, he looks like a bizarro Wally West from the Teen Titans days.
Right.
Kid Flash, because he's got Vulcan ears, and they look like the little feathers that come out of the Flash's head, and he's got hair coming. He was born in a day. The plot is that the scientist gets fired from the Shelley Institute. Wah, 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 Shelley Institute. Get it? They read a book or saw a movie. And his experiment is that he's going to inject a woman with a turkey baster full of something or something. Yeah, this guy look, it's Kid Flash.
Yeah.
I
don't know if you were talking about this picture or not.
That's because it looks like a star on his face. I was thinking the same thing. It's like, this is the worst glam rocker ever.
Yeah.
Look at this fuck.
Oh, come on. They did their best.
The budget went to that shirt.
I've decided I'm going to be very contrary to you today.
That's fine, because you have to watch more of this movie.
I'm not watching this movie.
You have to defend this movie.
I'm not defending this movie.
So this movie was so cheap they couldn't afford horrified looks. I'm not exaggerating. There's an amazing scene where two people look at this thing coming into an exercise room and they don't react. One of them so the scene that everybody points out to is that, so this woman is tied to she's in his lab, which is a garage that's in an apartment building. I know, because they're like it's like the boundaries of the human mind is why I watch these things and actually sit.
Well, I think you do. I think, Evan, you do get a little more angry than I do with this. Like, I figure that these guys are kind of stoned.
This is shock and awe.
Aw.
Aw. The Canadians made a movie. Aw. It's just it's amazing to me that anybody makes something like this, that the people involved sit through it, and that they actually finish it and somehow it gets into homes, that it's like they're like bacteria.
Yeah, but honestly, this is a movie that I don't think did that much. You know, there are a lot of these movies that we're seeing now that are really, really borderline, you know, watchable at all. That you know, really didn't have distribution and didn't have.
This one apparently did. They couldn't even find the footage. They don't know where this guy is, who made it. Yeah, it was apparently released after this company found 2 video cassettes of it and did the best they could. And it's just I've never seen a movie like this with characters with you can't even call it a movie. You can't call it characters. You can't call it a plot. Everything has to be in fucking quotes. I've never seen a movie this bad. I mean,
it seems very backyard kid-like to me. You know what I mean?
What's amazing is it all takes place in the same apartment building, kind of like David Cronenberg's Shivers, except that it has a pool just like Shivers, except it's obviously not a pool from this same apartment building. It also has a garage that's not in this apartment building. It has a gym. And everybody in the movie lives in this apartment, including the scientist, apparently, because this guy never leaves this apartment complex. There's about 30 minutes of this guy walking through hallways. I'm not exaggerating.
Well, yeah, it's the problem with these movies. They don't know what to do, so it's filler.
This one takes it to the nth degree. There's a sequence where 2 women are exercising. They're doing cardio.
Okay.
You can hear the crew laughing at them. I'm not making this up. There's many moments in this movie where they can only afford one sound at a time. So you can hear things cut off abruptly. The sound cuts off abruptly for the music to start. Then the music cuts out so somebody can say something. There's almost no sound effects. There's almost no special effects. It's just
also, doesn't it? If I'm remembering, if it's this movie that I started watching, the audio seems like, you know, so it'll be like, say, what are you doing? And then the audio, you know, as they do cutaways and stuff.
And everyone's looped, and the sound is not set to go with anything, so that when they call the cop who's on the case in this movie, he's dressed as a noir detective, and he's in a video store, and they call him at the video store. The guy who runs the video store picks the phone up before it starts ringing and says, "Yeah, he's here." It's just everything about this thing is fucked up. So the monster, the fiend, was born to a woman who was tied to a lawn chair.
Right. I think it looked like she was hypnotized. This is the part I saw. You know,
no, everyone in this movie looks like they're hypnotized.
It's like you're gonna have Dr. Frank, right? Which is the name of the fucking Dr. Frank.
Yeah.
He was like, you're going to have a baby in 24 hours. And then in a day, that baby's going to be like an adult or some shit.
I think he says something like, in 3 hours, you're going to be pregnant. And in a day, you're going to have a baby. And the baby comes out wrapped in a blanket or something.
You didn't take notes with this?
I just watched it. So it's fresh bleeding in my mind.
Okay.
It's raw in my mind. This horrific film. The baby comes out. I mean, the thing is, the movie isn't even tasteless. That's how it can't even. It does. It's not even. You'd think that this thing would be like disgusting, since it's about a forced pregnancy and a forced birth that happens in a miraculous 24. It makes no fucking sense. It really does feel like it was written by like a kid. But there's adults, and it's just the worst. It really is the worst horror movie I've ever seen in my life. It really just fucking is. I couldn't take it. I was going to turn it off, and then I just kept clicking forward, and then I realized the way that this movie is set, as you can click, every kill takes about 10 minutes because they keep repeating and looping the footage that you've already seen. Characters that are killed come back to life because they keep showing the death scenes. They don't care whether they're showing the woman reacting dead or alive.
Since you saw, I hate to say this though, but since you watched this at a faster speed, so you watched this 80 some odd minute movie in like 20 minutes, I don't think you could officially say you watched it. I don't think you really watched it.
Watch it and you'll see.
I couldn't watch it. I turned it off.
You literally, you don't miss anything because you go forward 5 minutes and it's the same fucking hallway with the same fucking movements. It's scary.
Okay.
I couldn't believe it. I'm going, I hope I don't miss anything because I really do at least want to see what and you go forward and you go, wait a minute, I must have gone backwards. I'm not kidding. I thought I went backwards or something because the same shot. I went forward and it's the same shot again. It was like insane. Yeah. This is worse than Things, and I'm not the first person apparently to have said that.
Wow. Well, I did get through Things, so that's possible, you know.
Oh, well, Things was fascinatingly fucked up and psychedelic and bad and wrong, but it had stuff you laughed at. This movie was just like, I was just like this. I mean, 8 minutes of people doing cardio.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The whole scene is on YouTube if anybody wants to watch the cardio kill. No, most people don't get killed at all. And it's just, kids would make a better film because they'd say, okay, now you fight. You guys fight. There's no fighting. The biggest action scene in this movie is one woman runs away. They couldn't afford gunshots. They don't even have flash coming out of the gun or anything. Somebody shoots at the camera. There's a sound effect, and the monster 5 feet away avoids the bullets twice. It's just fucking anti-film. It is the anti-life equation. So if people like really bad, I mean, just the worst things you've ever seen, suffer through Science Crazed. It's fucking garbage. It's just, and the funny thing is, I came into this going, hey, I watched one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Let's talk about it. And it was not Science Crazed.
Yeah.
It was Demons at the Door, which also was courtesy of your Plex. And I don't even know what to say about Demons at the Door. Hello, Roger, because Demons at the Door was, up until Science Crazed, one of the worst things I've ever seen. Holy shit.
I haven't had a chance to watch these yet.
Demons at all the stuff that's shot on video that you found recently, 3 of them I watched.
Right.
Because I've been sick this week and I just sat through a ton of stuff. And Demons at the Door is fascinating because it is so stupid. The people who made this are really kind of proud of themselves, and it's so lunkheaded and stupid and moronic and unintentionally funny. It's watchable because it's such a Hindenburg of a shot on video disaster about angels and demons, and it's got some horrible racist dialogue in it. And it's supposed to be funny because demons are saying all the racist stuff. But man, does the guy who made this like writing racist stuff for characters say there's a black character in it, and they keep saying racist shit to him, and he just like, it was cringe worthy. But it also has some of the worst effects you've ever seen in your life. It's got a worse rating. Look at the shit down there. Can you see?
Well, yeah, this was recently on a Best of the Worst episode. I don't know if you follow them, Red Letter Media.
I should, but
they had actually talked about this in their last episode.
Now the thing about Demons at the Door though is that it's terrible, but at least there's stuff to look at every couple of minutes. There's lots of very bad effects. That it's trying to do Evil Dead. It's trying to do. It's got that's our main villain, and that's the main racist too. That guy's literally having like these horrible verbal battles with this thing. I mean, vulgar, miserable cursing and racism. I mean, against Italians and against Black people, it's so fucking wrong, and it's terribly acted. But they're trying, and it's that, and they built a lot of monsters, and it's awful. I love a movie like that where you go on IMDb and there's somebody who was in it apologizing.
Well, yeah, that's always, it's like, oh man, my father was the director and he went through this, or yeah, I work on it. Yeah, there's always someone there.
This one was hilarious because the guy who plays that demon was like, look, man, he gave it like a 2. It's like, I like when there's people who represent their movie on IMDb and they're like, yeah, we were fucking around. This is terrible. I'm giving it a 10 though. They tried. This guy's like, I'm sorry. It's like, there's nothing funnier than watching people apologize, because now the internet people find these movies. I mean, it's really cute when people go, oh, I found, my dad was in this movie, or, I never thought I'd see this. I'm an extra walking past.
Right. I told that story, I think, on the last one about my friend's father, who was a ferry guy who, found the movie he was in.
Which one was that? Manhattan Baby, or
no? It wasn't the Fulci. It's this other one. It's like House by the Doors or the something. It's a terrible quasi giallo from, I think.
Give me 1 second. So, Demons at the Door is the third worst movie I watched in the last week. The second one was, I don't know what the hell the name of it was, because you found. I watch a lot of movies. To let people know, I watch a lot of the movies that I watch that are really obscure or weird. Paul hunts them down, and you found a bunch of movies that almost all have the same title. Very confusing. One of them I had already seen and didn't realize it until I started watching it, and it was decent enough because I didn't remember it at first that I let it go. That was Deadly Dreams, which is an interesting indie movie with a lot of people who ended up getting careers.
Right.
Unlike a lot of that was the one with the hunter. Did you watch that one?
No, of course I haven't watched that either.
Oh, so I watched it. I must have seen it on Tubi or something like that. It's interesting. It's I won't say anything about it, but it's interesting.
I know what it's about. It's a weird kind of Nightmare on Elm Street-ish, right?
Yeah, it's actually one of those films where the horror elements are kind of more seasoning than they are baked into the film. It's
Well, I've heard it described as a way to work through post-traumatic stress disorder in a horror film setting. Would
yes
you
and
agree
no.
with that?
Yes,
okay.
No, yes and no, because there's a mystery and some other crazy stuff going on. So it's not a movie that I would want to do spoilers on one, but it's actually worth tracking down. But the problem with the movie Deadly Dreams is it sounds like all these other damn movies.
Yeah.
Anything that seems to have dream in the title or deadly or dead is hard to, unless it's Dawn of the Dead or Night of the Living Dead or Return. I mean, okay, here's this list here. Deadly Dreams, Demons at the Door, Dream Stalker, Night Wars. I mean, I was so confused by all these because the movies are really. So I think Night Wars might have been a movie I saw like 30 years ago because it seemed familiar to me.
Right.
That's the one about 2 Vietnam vets who go to sleep holding guns.
Oh, that's what I thought we were talking about before.
No,
that's
that's.
Oh, this is bad. I'm very confused now.
But the one that I watched that was what now? Wait, Screams of a Winter Night was not the.
That's the anthology.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Oh, that was so fucking bad.
That was the 4th worst. You said it was bad. Sometimes I'm going like, oh, let me be contrary. I can't be contrary. That was fucking awful.
Well, it's one of those things where it's this low budget, cheapy kind of regional like anthology film, and you go, oh, it'll be fun. And what they do is they terribly retell urban legends.
Yeah.
And and the way they decide to do it, like they have the characters. There's a wraparound story of a bunch of these jerk-off friends go into a cabin in the woods.
They really
right?
are jerk-offs too. It's another one of these, like, why are these people hanging out? They're just unbelievably mean to each other. There's just absolutely horrible people. The couples don't seem to actually like each other. The friends don't like each other. It's a weird, it's that weird cheap tension that movies will do where they'll just have there's like 10 people. That's hard to get 10 people at this. You figure 2 of them might like it, but they're awful characters.
Oh yeah,
none of them.
Yeah, and we see them get to the cabin in the woods, and they want to tell stories. They're going to tell creepy stories. One of the women in the group is terrified of everything in a very weird way.
Really, if somebody says, "Oh," so they get into a car, and she goes, "You can get hit by a car," and she gets behind the fucking couch. It's like awful.
Yeah, it really is bad, and the story's bad. But then they reuse the actors from this wraparound segment.
I don't think it's a terrible idea.
Really, but I don't think it works in that. I don't think, but nothing works in that. If the movie was decently made, you might not get, because it's funny how the biggest jerk in the group always played the biggest jerk in the stories. Right. But got the ladies. He got the ladies, that guy.
The stories are bad. Two of them are urban legends. So you're suffering through something where you go, I know this whole, and it's just really terrible. The funny thing is, though, the wraparound is better than the stories, which is very rare.
Oh, by leaps and bounds, because the stories are fucking awful. Just awful.
Awful.
Yeah.
So if Screams of a Winter Night, which is a pretty cool title, is avoidable.
Yeah, very much
but
so.
The ending, they brought out some special effects, and they had some actual creepy, exorcist type stuff because they're in a supposedly haunted area.
Right. There's like there's a wind that comes that does shit, but it's
actually kind of cool. But
it works that part. Yeah.
Nothing. You got to, and Paul found the 2-hour version. Lucky us. Because there's one, they cut one segment out about a witch, which I didn't even know was about a witch, because at that point I was starting to fall, I was dying. It was so boring. It was just, it was just really boring. But the third worst was something called, let me find if I think this is Night. Oh wait, no, not Night. Again, I can't. Dreamstalker. No, wait, I don't think it was Dreamstalker. Shit, isn't this terrible? It was a movie. Paul found one movie that another shot on video, which is about a woman whose husband or fiance dies in a motocross accident.
Oh, right.
They decide this was they thought that
I couldn't watch any of these movies.
I'm telling you right now, don't watch any of these.
All right.
Do not watch. Don't watch people. And I usually go, look, if you like horrible films and you can suffer through them like I do because you're fascinated by the ineptitude and the dreams of the untalented. This, whatever the hell this fucking thing's called. Is it Dreamstalker? I think it's Dreamstalker. It's shot on video. It looks like hell. It's boring. And it's about a guy with a meatball face and wearing a motocross outfit who's invading her dreams whenever a music box goes off. It's fucking awful. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's one of those movies where it's like you feel like you're watching the non-porn segments of a porn film. It's just garbage. It's just, why make this? So yeah, I sat through all this shit, but I sat through some good stuff this week too.
Yeah, that was true. Yeah, I mean, I kind of had trouble watching a bunch of stuff. I've been just turning it off, not in the mood. And
Did you rewatch anything? You rewatched Night of the Creeps.
Well, I rewatched Night of the Creeps, and I found a couple of movies that I thought for the first time was good. I mean, Night of the Creeps, it just always holds up. It's just a fun movie to watch.
I did not know that the guy who made it has the same problems for me as Monster Squad.
Really?
And it's the same guy. The same guy made both, which is really fascinating to me. I love Night of the Creeps, though, where I don't love Monster Squad.
Right. I love Night of the Creeps, and I super love Monster Squad.
I think Monster Squad is terrible. It's like the Goonies, much more than.
I think that's because you hate the kids. Isn't that because you hate the kids?
I think, well, the kids are our heroes, and they're awful.
I don't mind the kids.
They're absolutely awful. They're forgettable. They're terribly written. They're bad actors. If they had gotten some decent kids, the monsters are okay, but to me, it's like it's very Saturday morning. It's like a Saturday morning live show. There's some really cute scenes in it. And I think that this guy, the same thing with Night of the Creeps. I think this guy's got his head in the right place. He's obviously a big fan.
Right.
But wasn't Monster Squad written by Shane Black?
He's on writing credits.
If I read, because I looked it up afterwards, this guy was a roommate with Shane Black. Yeah. Is it Fred Decker? I think his name is the director.
Yes.
And Shane Black possibly worked uncredited on Night of the Creeps. The thing about Night of the Creeps is it's almost got the same problems. I don't think he directed Monster Squad, but he picks except for Tom Atkins, the characters are kind of obnoxious or they're bland. I have real problems with the lead guy. He doesn't.
Thank you.
Monster
Stevie.
Squad has put a 20 in front of that.
Wow.
0, Stevie. Wow. Monster Squad is a really awkward. It's an amiable film that I think doesn't work. I love the monsters.
No, I think it's definitely for you. The kid problems that for me almost every part of that movie works perfectly. I like everyone. The awkwardness of some of the scenes, the awkwardness of some of the actors does not, is not a problem for me. Yeah, well, this is what killed his career.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Third RoboCop movie, which I haven't seen because the second one was enough for me.
Yeah.
Woof. But Night of the Creeps to me has a lot of the same problems as Monster Squad, but it's hipper, for lack of a better word. It's funnier. It moves better, even though it's really, really awkward. I mean, I noticed watching it that there's scenes that I did not remember how weird the pacing and the time frame is for the movie. It makes no sense. I mean, he wrote it in a week. They shot it really quick, like they had to make it. A House is another movie like that. Yeah, I mean, the guy makes he obviously is a huge horror fan, especially Night of the Creeps is just filled with references, some of them to its detriment. Naming all the characters after horror directors was a dumb idea, even when it was first released. But the male lead is kind of bland. I never believe, and it's another one of these movies where I never believe the romance, which is important to the movie. And
right, people, Brian loves that movie. I haven't seen it yet, but that Predator sequel, people do not seem to like.
Yeah, it had a lot. That was one of those movies that had a ton of people excited because it was Shane Black coming back, and then it was very quiet after it came out, kind of like a kickstarted comic book. Everybody's excited, and and they're throwing money, and they're getting all excited, and they're tweeting, and they're blogging about it. And then the movie comes out, and it's crickets.
Right.
And I forget that movie even came out. People, I haven't seen Prey though. I know people really like the.
I saw Prey. I think it's good. I don't think it's great.
It's funny because it looks so much like a Dark Horse comic, if you know what I mean. It's like, look, let's have one in the Old West. Let's have one in World War II.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking for the the sequel stuff. So
I'm not a Predator.
Here's the thing.
Yeah, I'm not a Predator fan. Just to get that out real quick.
Right.
I think they're really jerky movies. And the alien itself is, and the funny thing is, the Predator was built on the corpse of the creature suit from Monster Squad.
Yeah,
they put a new head on the creature from the Black Lagoon character, which is my favorite suit of the whole of that movie. It looks terrific. But yeah, Monster Squad was a disappointment. You see, I saw both Monster Squad and Night of the Creeps as an adult. I didn't see them in the 80s. I always wanted to.
Yeah, I have a really great well, the reason I think I love the Monster Squad so much is I have a great experience of seeing it in a really weird theater. When I was dating Marianne, we would drive into a cabin to stay for the weekend with her family. And it was a movie I had read about, but seemed to come and go. And when I was driving up, I saw it was in the theater. So Marianne, her brother, and I went to see it. And I had a wonderful experience. It's so much of my love for that movie, I'm sure, comes from that. But I rewatch it every couple of years, and I really don't mind it. I actually, when I rewatched Night of the Creeps, was worried because there was certain sections of that I would always kind of cringe at that bothered me a lot less time. less this time.
It bothers me less because I know it's coming. I couldn't remember some of this, but I mean, look, Night of the Creeps, Tom Atkins makes even some of his bad dialogue work. The whole thrill me thing is pretty terrible. There's some stuff he says that's almost Tom Morrissey like. It's so cliche.
Oh man, you were just pounding on. Oh
no, I enjoyed watching Night of the Creeps. It has a lot of problems. It's a very rushed film. It's got a lot of things that are, on the face of it, make no sense. The film takes something like 3 days. Not counting the 50s, which makes no sense because the creeps are all over the fucking those slither, whatever. I don't know, what do you call them? They never really call them anything, do they? The slugs.
Slug crutch. No, they don't.
But those slugs run around the campus for 3 days.
Yeah.
That makes no sense whatsoever. There is no reason for them to wait. They're mindless. A lot of them have been going into the basement, you could argue.
Right. And I think that's the point. I think you're talking about a slow takeover. Yes, the multiple days doesn't make sense because it has to set up a couple of set
because
pieces.
The script has a really awkward the narrative has very, very awkward structure. Things happen fast and slow. He needs to get the romance and the rivalry and the characters set up on a day.
Yeah.
And yeah, Slither.
I like it too. I mean, it's an unofficial remake.
I thought, yeah, and it also takes a scene from. It's a very grabby movie. It's Night of the Creeps with Shivers, a scene straight out of Shivers, which Nightmare on Elm Street also ripped off. But Slither is interesting because it's like a knowing take on a knowing take. Night of the Creeps is all horror movies. There's so much stuff going on. It's got I read a snippet of an interview with Decker, and he said basically he wanted to throw as many things in there as possible. He gets his 1950s monster. I think it almost has too much stuff in there. He's got zombies. He's got it's full of ideas, but it needs a second draft really badly that they obviously didn't have time for.
I propose to you, because for me
you're already married, Paul.
Well, if I could make one change to that movie, is I would switch the kid that dies with the kid that lives. And I think if you did that, and no offense to the actor or anything, but I think the other character was a lot more interesting. And I think if he was the star till the end of the movie, I think it would be a lot more forgivable.
I think that if it was, what I would do is I would have hired somebody else to play the lead. Again, nothing, I don't want to make fun. It's I feel weird because back in the day I didn't give a flying fuck, but you don't want to make somebody, especially if you're criticizing something because you just feel that somebody doesn't really look the part, but also that I don't think his acting's very good. I think it's interesting that the character sort of wakes up after the scene with Tom Atkins.
Yeah.
The great scene where Tom Atkins is trying to kill himself, which is beautifully done. It's it's one of my favorite scenes, but they try to do so much that the movie gets a little bent out of shape. Having the body underneath the building where the matron, it's just there's so many extra beats that kind of aren't terrible on their own, but detract from the main movie. The main movie takes a long time to finally get fucking going, and when it finally gets fucking going, it kills off the most charismatic character in the school.
Right. There's also the awkward exposition that we have a tape left that basically explains that I could have lived without. I don't care.
I think it's a good scene that doesn't work because not only is it feels shoved in, it doesn't go with the logic of the movie.
The explanation of what's going on doesn't work. Him saying goodbye to a friend really works in it.
Well, it's emotionally, it's a great scene. As exposition, it stinks because it's shoehorned in. Nobody talks as one of those creatures. Nobody has a chance. But his friend somehow does, which absolutely makes no sense.
To the point that he could stop himself from turning. He goes to actually, It
doesn't work. It's a great scene that stinks. If you know what I mean? It solves but it's just also when he's removed, the character that I always think of is when in the Hellboy movie, the first Hellboy movie is when Abe Sapien disappears. There's kind of like your human heart from the movie leaves. He's the human heart. Unfortunately, the lead actress in the movie is not terrible, but she's not given a lot to do.
Well, she's another one that seems to almost change. It was, when you mentioned that about the lead,
when they finally get to fight,
she's all of a sudden she's a character.
They're both characters, but in the rest of the movie,
maybe they weren't given the right direction. Maybe Decker wasn't experienced enough, or didn't know how to handle that.
Well, it was it's one of those movies that are kind of like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, where it's amazing how much they did for the money that they had. It's amazing how many ideas and how many scenes that work are thrown in. I mean, the movie really works once it gets going, but I mean, it's got so many. And I don't dock it, but I'm just saying I was amazed at how many things were just obviously dashed off. The fact that the fraternity is somehow miles away at the end from the sorority, that made no sense. They have to take a bus to get, or actually,
what if they're intoxicated? They're intoxicated, Evan.
I guess they're going to a dance somewhere, but they couldn't afford the dance. I mean, I don't believe the romance. I don't believe the two leads for a lot of the movie. There are times where I'm confused as to who I'm looking at in certain scenes. Like, I didn't realize that was our lead actress. Seeing the dead guy, the first zombie.
Right.
Is the way the police go about everything is nuts, because they have a police squad doing things, but they're incompetent.
Yeah, but go back again. Take a second. Go back to the Monster Squad. The relationship between the two cops and Monster Squad, the way they talk to each other, is very odd. And I think that's something that Decker either influenced or using Shane Black as a writing partner, that comes across, and that might be something that sticks with you as being weird. I see it as, it's unrealistically ridiculous, and I enjoy it.
The cops disappear and reappear. They also don't. Nobody makes any. I mean, I'm nitpicking. And again, this is a movie that I enjoy. I've seen it 3 times now.
What a dick.
But it's funny that the character. There's great scenes, but it's ham-fisted in some places. It's a little like, if it had better leads, I think I'd like it a lot more, because they're kind of sluggish. Joke intended. I just don't believe that lead character. There's so much time spent with the Animal House hijinks in the first half hour, and it's also weird that I didn't understand the aliens at the beginning. I still forgot. One of them, I guess, is a zombie, but it doesn't come off like one.
Well, but that's the thing. I feel I've read that's been debated, like that maybe he's just a prick, and he's
they actually call I've seen him referred to as, like, I think in the credits he's the zombie alien or the dead alien or something like that. It's just the movie is sloppy, but it's really fun.
I think it's good. But I think Atkins. I think without Atkins, it probably might fall apart.
Well, Atkins is the only pumping heart, if you know what I mean. I mean, nothing. The actor who plays the best friend is fun. He gets a little annoying. He's a little shrill because he's written to be a little too over the top. But literally, because the character, I think it's an interesting idea that he's written as handicapped, because there's nothing made of it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's just Decker put in a handicapped character because he's like, you don't see that. But that limits his ability to literally be active in the film in a visual and heroic way. He can't do some of these. Atkins is basically our hero, even though he's kind of removed. I mean, I think one of the problems is the first time I watched it, I had real problems with some of it because I couldn't follow what was going on in the 50s flashback. That's over here.
Oh, okay.
There's so many moving parts that the movie starts in the 1950s. There's a missing body. Wait, is that the frozen body? No, that body's buried under a house. Oh wait, the frozen body. But where did the frozen body go?
Well, I always feel it's awkward that Atkins kill. The part where he kills I assumed he found the hatchet killer the night of the when his girlfriend gets killed, or his ex-girlfriend. Yeah. So you assume that happens almost right away, but that's the reason that body is buried by the sorority house because
it
he's hunted him for an X amount of time, but so
it
then he
almost
kills
feels
him.
like the entire background is one, he wanted to just do some 50s stuff and have some like old monster alien stuff going on, because the movie starts as aliens on a spaceship,
Right.
then goes into 50s EC Comics Hatchet Murderer,
Right.
then turns into Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
Right.
and then Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, with some Revenge of the Nerds going on.
And it's a lot. It gets confusing because of so much going on. And sometimes it feels like the axe murderer is only in there so that they find the bodies with their heads split open and don't think that there's something supernatural going on, that there's another axe murderer, which is really fucking forced, you know? But I mean, look, I know it's a problematic film, but it's a lovable, fun, crazy movie with some really good effects and some really terrible effects. The eyeballs coming out of the bus driver, the dog.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole scene is ridiculous. It's like they just didn't know how to kill all those guys, so they're like bus accident. It's just it's seat of the pants, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'd rather watch that than Slither, even though Slither's got better actors, better effects, better action. I'll take Night of the Creeps. I haven't seen Slither more than once, and Night of the Creeps I've seen 3 times. But did you do any other rewatches? Has anybody, if anybody's watched anything that they recommend,
I rewatched Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
I watched that for the first time.
Yeah, and you liked it, right?
Really liked it. Liked it.
Yeah, it's incredibly charming. It's one of those things that if you pitch the idea, right, you'd go, how the fuck am I going to be able to sit through a 90-minute movie of this? Because it seems like it could really get old quick.
Yeah,
but
it's really inventive.
Yeah,
it does not lag.
Yeah,
I think actually the ending, if you want to like, you know, the ending, I was kind of like, the ending has kind of like the standard 3. You know, they beat the guy several times. He keeps coming back. I wasn't crazy about how they made that character more integral to every. You know what I mean? Like he couldn't just be a nut.
Right, he had to have a backstory.
The way that the plot, I mean, but almost in a way that's almost funny how forced it was at the end, that they reveal the stuff about the crazy camper kid. But I thought it was like ridiculously charming for a movie that some of the most grotesque, some absolutely terrific gore effects, and the 2 actors. I knew the guy who plays Tucker, I guess.
Yes, from Firefly. I forget his name.
I don't know Firefly, but I looked him up because I know his face. I've seen him in something. I thought the 2 actors really sell it.
Yeah, they work so well with each other.
I really liked their rapport, and I'm amazed there hasn't been a sequel.
Yeah, me too.
I'm almost amazed that the 3 of them haven't gone to a haunted house, or those characters are so winning and such a good comedy team. And you could do a lot with those 2 characters.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I hated the kids. I loved seeing them die.
Yeah.
But it was done in a way where they knew it. You know what I mean? It wasn't that these characters were supposed to be lovable and cool and hip and sexy or funny or whatever. They were obnoxious. Right, Alan? They were obnoxious, and you wanted to see them get it. And the funny thing is, I started feeling bad for them though, because they just kept getting slaughtered in this. Like they fucked up so bad.
Right.
At the end, the last ones that are getting burnt, I actually because they were just. It was almost like I don't think this was intended, but it was almost like a flip side of the Savini remake of Night of the Living Dead, where they're like, let's make a Friday the 13th film. But all the campers are really self-destructive assholes.
Right.
Who fuck themselves up, and they do the wrong thing throughout the movie, and they could have gotten out, or they could have. It's just they listen to this one fuck, but it was funny as hell. I mean, the Rube Goldberg kind of Final Destination style murders of some of the characters, the sheriff. I'm sitting there going, they brought the sheriff in. That's kind of ballsy. To actually bring a guy with a gun who has authority. Like, what's going to happen here?
Right.
Because not going to spring he's a vampire or he's a drug dealer or he's got to arrest them. Fuck, they set that up nicely, but you know what I mean? I wasn't expecting that beam again. It was just really clever. That's a script where there's got to be several drafts of that script because it's
so tight. Yeah,
it's tight. The structure of that script it's a skeleton that allows all that shit to work. It's just and the performances and the dialogue. I was really surprised how much I liked it because I don't really like backwoods movies, you know, that they're making fun of, and the fact that the guys weren't very bright but they were really likable.
Right.
Was, you know, seems like an obvious decision, but really isn't. They could have just been two bums. They could have been two complete caricatures. They could have been completely stupid. And the other thing is the jokes that weren't about murder worked well too. I mean, I love the fact that they loved their cabin. I just love that.
Yeah, they were so happy.
It's a mansion. You know, and it's like, it was just, I would definitely watch a sequel. It's amazing. They make sequels to so much garbage. And meanwhile, you got, you know, Abbott and Costello meet the killer campers. They could put them in. I'm amazed that there isn't a call for a sequel to that because it's beloved.
Yeah.
It got an amazing rating on IMDb. People just seem to love it, and it's so much fun. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it a lot. I'll definitely watch that again.
Yeah.
And the gore effects are fantastic.
Oh yeah, they don't skip, and it's balls to the wall.
It's disgusting. It's like dead alive in some place. I love how fucked up Tucker gets. Like the bees scene is terrific.
Yeah, that he loses a couple of fingers.
The bees scene,
fingers.
Yeah. And at the end, you're not sure if they gave him his right finger back. There's something fucked up about that finger.
There's nails. It looks like they're female fingers that they sewed onto it.
It'd be great. He could have that hand for the other movie too. It'd be terrific.
But it's a buddy comedy movie that you really don't see people do much anymore.
It's got a lot of juvenile and dumb humor, but it's smart dumb. It's not. You know what I mean? It's not toilet humor. It didn't go where I thought it was good. I thought it was going to really. In the opening scenes where the sheriff sees them and he thought that they might be, you know, they're making fun of them because they looked like they were two homosexual guys who were caught in the act. I was like, geez, I'm hoping, but that was it for that.
Yeah.
They didn't do much. It was just another joke, and they actually handled the romance decently.
Yeah, it was sweet.
I could, she's like amazing, maybe a little too actress looking.
Right.
Because that's Hollywood, but I mean, he's a sweetheart, and they got it's just he was super nice to her.
Yeah.
You don't like pancakes. It's like it was just I never saw such a gory movie that made me feel so like warm. That's what's hilarious about it. How like absolutely endearing it was.
Yeah.
Really, really good movie. Really good weird movie. And it's funny because it's not really a horror movie, but it totally is.
Yeah. It's very meta.
It's almost like the slasher equivalent of one of those ghost movies where it turns out to be mobsters in a haunted house that have gambling rooms, and they're just trying to scare everybody out because it's like nobody actually tries to kill anybody in this movie, well, except for that guy at the end. But I love that the bee scene is great, and the wood chipper. I love the way the Alan Tudyk, or however you pronounce it. I love the way he reacts to every time a kid is killed. I love how I just absolutely he's like, I don't believe what a horrible day this is. Birthday, this fucking crazy suicide kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, what else did you rewatch? Anything?
I mean, I rewatched Burial Ground because it's something that
I was surprised you went back to that one.
Well, the thing is, the first time I watched it was a shitty YouTube version of it, and there's Blu-rays out of it, so I wanted to see a good version of it.
Could you do everyone a favor for me? Could you bring up a picture of that wonderful child?
Okay. I mean, he's not a child. I believe he's 27.
I said you put it in quotes.
Okay, I'll put it in quotes.
The only reason anybody remembers Burial Ground. I have watched Burial Ground twice because I forgot. I didn't know that I had seen it already, and I went forward with it. And Burial Ground is an obnoxious fucking zombie movie. It really is.
Well, obnoxious.
I've never called a movie obnoxious in my life, but man, is it an obnoxious?
You must have.
Oh, I don't think so. Oh, because that is only for Burial Ground. Fucking Burial Ground, man. That fuck. Look at that. That looks like an outtake from Resident Evil remake or something. It is horrible. Look at that little fuck. That's supposed to be a kid, number one. Now, here's the funny thing. I couldn't tell if this was an adult or a kid the entire movie because Italy produces the most disgusting children actors. Okay? Think about all
now, I'm not going to. Do we have to get lawyers now? Are we going to get sued?
No. Look at these. First of all, these fucking meatball heads. Look at this.
No, they got
Rasputin, the mad zombie victim.
This is the coconut head zombies.
Look at that. Wee! It's like the blind dead escaped.
Spain. Look at
this. Look at the bowling ball head on that thing.
Yeah, it's not good.
So it's like the tombs of the blind dead zombies had nothing to do for a weekend, so they took Eurorail. They end up in Italy, and they said, "Hey, can we be in your movie? Hey, how about Burial? Look at that pinhead. Look at that horrible." So what, Paul? Why is that an adult, not a kid?
Why is that adult, not a kid?
Why did they hire an adult and not a child for Burial Ground?
Fuck should I know?
You watched the movie.
The kid
because
does
of a scene that even Italy wouldn't let a kid do.
Well, yeah, they do. The kid does a bunch of stuff with his mom, like that's creepy and weird. That they obviously couldn't get one of those like Fulci kids, like from House by the Cemetery.
See what I was telling? I'm not making it up. The nastiest kids.
They're not ugly kids. They're just young kids. They're dubbed weird.
Do me a favor. Go grab some kids from some Italian movies.
That would be illegal.
No, I didn't mean like the Burial Ground guy. I meant grab a picture of the kid from City of the Living Dead. Or is that the same kid from House by the Cemetery?
I think they're all the same. I think they're clones.
Half the movies have the. What about the little girl who's in Beyond? They're they're scarier than the zombies in those Fulci movies. They just go out of their way to put weird fucking kids in their movies.
Well,
Manhattan
okay.
Baby. The kid.
What's the movie where the kid is it the Beyond where he's only eating Campbell's soup? He just eats Campbell's soup out of a can?
No, I think the only kid in the Beyond is the girl. The redheaded girl who watches.
Not the Beyond. I'm sorry. Beyond the Door. That's what I meant.
Oh, I don't.
It's probably fucking not that either.
Beyond the Door is really hard to remember. Is that the one with Haley Mills or Juliet Mills or?
Yeah, it's got a Mills in it. It's got like
one of the Exorcist ripoffs.
Yeah.
I watched an Exorcist ripoff for Halloween.
Really?
Yeah, an Italian. It was not bad for about 45 minutes. What was it called? I'm looking at my list. Look at this horrendous list, folks. This is my list of movies I watched for the Halloween season because not only did I watch a lot of movies, but when I was sick this last week, I just watched like 6 a night. This is why I'm nuts. I have molasses for brains. I have oatmeal for brains after all these things.
I'm trying to get a picture of this fucking kid.
He will sear his face into your soul.
Oh, here we go. This is a creepy picture of him.
Because I'm not making this up. And it's weird because they find kids that don't even look Italian. They look like they look like they're like hybrid mutants. Like they're Epcot. Epcot said, "Oh, I hate that kid."
Yeah, there's a little Midwich cuckoo-y.
That's what they think like American kids look like, which is probably why they hired.
Yeah, and they have the weirdest dub voices too. I think that doesn't help.
And the collagen lips. They look like Rankin Bass figures. They look like the elves from fucking Rudolph the Ring. Oh, speaking of Rudolph the Reindeer, our podcast, our videocast today is brought to you by Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer family-sized General Mills cereal. She thinks I'm cute. No, Fulci, put me in the movie. Oh. And you get the special.
I didn't know you were going to do voices, Evan. I would have,
You know, if you notice, I covered up the whole screen because there was no. But look at this. You get a Yeti.
Yeah.
You get Reindeer Games, which is a movie that you don't want to watch. You ever seen Reindeer Games? That's fucking bad.
Twice.
And but here's the thing that I thought they made a mistake on, but I understand why they did it. Let me explain. They have flying reindeer marshmallow shapes. What the hell is that? Rudolph's red nose, which I think is kind of weird that you bite his nose. And they have Hermes hat. Now I wish it came with a misfit toy. I'd go crazy if there was a spotted elephant in here. My God, I love the spotted elephant. I thought that they should have had the Yeti's tooth. You'd have a white marshmallow, but it was pointed out to me that the idea of kind of eating teeth doesn't sound very appetizing, does it? And I agree. But I still think that a Yeti's tooth would have been more interesting than the flying reindeer, which just, I mean, does this look like... Look at that. That looks like one of the zombies from Burial Ground more than anything else. Anyway, that's our sponsor for the night. We got our first sponsor. They haven't paid for it and don't know anything about it, but still, it's our first sponsor, right? Podcast is going crazy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm all whipped up on I had a bagel with butter. Whee! Has anybody kicked in any ideas or said what they've been watching this?
I have a couple of things from before Starred.
Because there's got to be a lot of stuff I can't even look at. Night of the Comet is a movie that I saw in the theaters and I absolutely hated it to the point where I made fun of it in the theater. And I watched it again a few years ago and I thought, it's not terrible. It's not as bad as I was expecting a horror movie and it's more of a jerky science fiction.
There's a series of movies I always think of, I group together, even though they're not that similar necessarily. Sure. But I think of Night of the Comet and Night of the Creeps and Chopping Mall, Kill Bots.
I got you.
These kind of films, you know, I don't think Night of the Creeps is very good, but I think it's watchable. And if you're old, Night of the Comet. I think Night of the Comet is always watchable. Stevie's a big fan of it. We watch it. I've watched it, rewatched it every couple of years for something.
It's a real 80s artifact. I mean, they all three of them. It's really 80s.
Exhumed, Devin?
What?
Did we see that at Exhumed?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I saw it with Hanley and the evil dentist, Nat Kaplan.
Okay.
At the Lane Theater. Yeah. Nat Kaplan, Jim Hanley was the owner of Jim Hanley's Universe, as some of you might know from our talking about it, or if you're Staten Island residents. And the comic store that Paul and I both worked at and managed that back in the day. And Nat Kaplan was one of our the late Nat Kaplan.
Yeah, he was a nice guy.
He was awesome. He cleaned my teeth. He did dental work for me and stuff, and I gave him artwork. Yeah, I had no money.
Yeah, he was an insane collector, like one of the most insane collectors.
And we
know he's insane collectors.
And his kids loved stuff too, so he was always buying. Like when I went to his house was in the back of his office, and he had like the G.I. Joe battle air command. What do you call it? Aircraft carrier. It was insane how much he had the 3.5-inch G.I. Joe stuff for his kids to play with because he enjoyed it too. He loved Conan. He loved all. We did see it Exhumed. Okay, so
maybe you weren't there. Maybe you
no, I may have been. I did. I know I saw it a second time, and I ended up, not hating it. But when I watched it, I hated it. Woof! I hated it. It was so. I just thought it was so empty. Kind of just not much going on in it. But it had Mary Warnoff, I think, is in that, and that's always good, unless it's House of the Devil.
Yeah. It is. But that's honestly the thing. It's a very pleasant revisiting of 80s kind of.
Sure. No, it's a likable movie that I don't think is it has a really great reputation, and I just quite never understood it because I think it's kind of the only real horror scene in it is a dream, and I hate that unless it's a movie about dreams. But the horror cop,
right,
which is very similar to. Who kind of ripped that off? Phantasm 4 or 3 does the horror cop thing. The cop shows up and shows, but yeah, go figure. Phantasm ran out of ideas. I almost rewatched Phantasm, but I love it. People seem to hate it. Younger people who check it out, oof. You know, it's like I just almost feel like somebody's making fun of my high school photo when I see some reviews of it. But you know, what the fuck, you know? I mean, when they're our age, somebody's going to be pissing on Terrifier 2.
Well, I mean, it's one of the reasons.
Oh, come on, man! Oh,
it's one of the reasons. You know, it's one of the reasons why I have a lot of problems with modern horror is because they don't seem to click with me, and obviously they do with modern audiences.
Sure.
And the thing is, it's hard to sell a movie like Phantasm. I remember trying to sell. It's a long story, so I won't get into it. But trying to sell Phenomena, Creepers, Argento's film, as just a mind fuck crazy movie. I just always remember seeing it and enjoying it. And the person I recommended it to thought it was boring and terrible beyond belief. And
that's the funny thing. Yeah, films are paced the way a lot of the modern films are paced, for good or bad. It's funny. I just watched Let the Right One In for the first time.
Is that the original?
I'm actually surprised it's as popular as it was, because it really is glacially paced, pun intended. Which I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it too. You are talking about the foreign version.
Yeah. I don't even know what the other one's called. The American.
It's Let the Right One In and.
Let her in.
Yo, MTV Raps.
I think the American one is called Yo, Let Her In, dude.
Yo, come on.
Harold and Kumar, Let the Right.
Christmas. Dude.
So it's funny, and then the rest of the family watched it separately.
Thank you.
Let me in, woo, and they hated it. I was really surprised, to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of those, only because I'm afraid that I'll hate them, and
I haven't seen them yet. I'm afraid that they'll bother me. It takes me a while. I crawled up to the starting line and almost fired up Martyrs twice this last week.
Oh, that would have been good when you were sick.
That's what I was. I was like, I just still can't. And the same with The Descent, because The Descent looks pretty intense.
You know, the weird thing is I'm prejudiced against The Descent.
What, you don't like women? Since when?
Only because I always think of, I think it's Midnight Tour, the Richard Lehman book, which is his version of.
Is that the one with the bucket of gasoline?
Yeah, in the hotel and the man-eating creatures in the cave attraction.
You know what's funny?
So fucked up.
I found a radio show that I really wonder. Richard Lehman is probably the right age. There's an episode of The Mysterious Traveler called Behind the Door, I think.
Yeah.
And it is about an archaeologist, his assistant, and their guide. And I forget where they are, but they end up finding. They end up underground, lost, and they find a lost race of the descendants of a wagon train that was attacked and buried.
Okay.
And and they're cannibals.
Yeah.
And the whole deal. And I was like, he would have been a kid in the 50s, and
Yeah.
Like, really made me think of that book. I've only read 2 Lehman, maybe 3. I always felt so dirty.
Yeah, I've read 20 plus of his books.
Oh my Lord.
He's an interesting character. The interesting thing though about Martyrs is I think Martyrs to me is like Butterfly Kisses. It deconstructs torture porn in a way that makes it interesting.
I'm curious about it because enough people, you and other people have basically whose opinions I trust. I might not like it, but there's an understanding that there's something that
I don't like High Tension. I don't like them.
I haven't seen
I haven't seen
Funny Games.
I've seen both Funny Games. I like both Funny Games.
Yeah, I don't like home invasion movies on the whole.
That's funny. Steve doesn't either.
Yeah, I just don't. I have real problems. First of all, I find that they're usually really just nasty for the sake of nastiness.
Right.
They're a cheap way to just, torture porn is an overused. I mean, I still use it, but yeah, I mean, it's a cheap way to make a movie. Is to just to have people bust into it. You don't even have to dress the place up or do ghosts or anything like that. You don't have to put the cameras up. You just have people being nasty to other people. To me, that's not horror. That's crime, and it happens. And it's to the same reason I don't like any movie I don't really like serial killer stuff, which I went through a phase in the 80s where I was buying what was it? What was the name of the company? Lampoonix?
Why can't I? Yeah, it's Jesus Christ. I hate being
I'm
old. Yeah.
But I was like, oh shit. I was buying stuff where people go, you're going to be on an FBI list for ordering that. And I was like, wow, Jim's on the list.
What Evan's talking about was a mail order house that carried lots of weird conspiracy books.
Hunting Humans was the one that I bought.
Right. Now, the thing is, when I ordered from them, I would always order it in my mother's name. So if I ever got on a list, my mother.
I ordered it through Hanley, so the FBI could show.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Jesus Christ!
Why did I think Scott might know it? But, similar experiences and interest. But I went. I know you went through a big true crime serial killer phase. I went through one.
Yes, I went through two phases in the 80s, like a lot of aged guys like us. I read that stuff and was into it. And then in the early 2000s, I realized I was wondering what it was about. So I literally read 2 books on every famous serial killer to be updated about where the thing was then.
It made me nuts.
Sounds creepy.
It made me paranoid and nuts.
Yeah.
You can see how when you delve into something that hardcore, you can start to believe that it's everywhere, or that you can become tainted by that shit. It's super negative.
But there's also, what's your fascination? My fascination with serial killers is not like, what do they do? And it's, to me, it's how the hell do you catch them? Pre-DNA.
Well, I couldn't stand the fact that they kept going. I mean, a lot of it was the breakdown of. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it'd be prostitutes or people of color who were victims, or
gay,
people couldn't see that this guy in the community could possibly be a problem. It's like the thing that I always remember. I'm like, there's controversy about, I think, a Jeffrey Dahmer show right now. I have no interest in watching any horror movie that has Jeffrey Dahmer or Gacy.
That's funny. That just came up. No, that just came up as a question. But
I will not watch that shit. I will not support that shit. And I hate all the horror movies that are on Tubi that are Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, there's a difference between that and My Friend Dahmer, which is based on the Derf Backderf story.
Well, the problem with Dahmer's romanticized in a way that really is kind of gross when you think about it.
Makes absolutely no sense to me.
The idea, I think people think he was so lonely and so separated from people that his madness, of course, caused him to do this. But, he was a horrible, horrible fucking monster, The
story that always comes to mind about Dahmer is that the cops turned one of his victims back over to him.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's the story, is that this fucked up human was a known quantity to the police, and they just, let's just take a kid and give him back to this guy.
His neighbors were, his place reeked. There was a lot of signs that there were problems, and a lot of people died before they caught him.
Two horrible things about that. One, how could that happen? And two, would I do any better as a neighbor or as a human being? I don't know my neighbors. I hear screaming at night sometimes.
Right.
You try to make sure nobody's getting beaten to death, but you don't call the cops because you don't want the cops to. Well, it's a little different now. You don't want the cops to come and kill somebody. But I mean, a bunch of us ran out a few years ago when there was a mugging in my neighborhood. The only one that I've seen, and it was kind of cool. Everybody,
Yeah.
it was kind of like what you wish America was more like. A whole bunch of people who don't know each other and speak different languages came out at the same time, and actually, But if it was somebody, I wouldn't know if there's a Jeffrey Dahmer in the neighborhood.
Right.
That I think is what's so scary about serial killers.
Well, to me, like I was saying before, since
Part of it.
It's always been, the person who kills you is most likely known by you.
Right.
Right. That's how the police work. So the thing is, there used to be a time when somebody could drive, there weren't easy passes, they didn't have phones. They drive, they pick up a prostitute, they kill them, and no one really cares because these poor people are reported missing. And they're like, oh, well, that, they always disappear. This is what always.
One of the other scary things about reading those books was how almost every book had there was a subplot of how inept the police were. A lot of the books try to really push this pro police because that's what we do. But you're reading it and you're going, even if it's one of those books where they're not saying bad things about the police, it's not hard to connect the lines that they're overworked, don't care, cynical, racist.
Well, there's a when I went back and read all this stuff on what was happening in the 2000s with serial killers, one of the things that always came up is when they caught one, even if, BTK or whatever, the cops were like, oh, we imagined this guy was some kind of criminal genius because we couldn't catch him, and it's like, dude, that's your understanding of how it worked. These people, you just didn't know how to catch people like this. You didn't know the mechanisms involved. And then DNA came, and now your cousin, like I did 23andMe, and I'm sure that's going to cause people in my family to get arrested for shit.
We did the genetic stuff, and as you know, we found out some amazing shit.
Yeah.
Which I won't get into. But yeah, found out some stuff that was pretty bombshell in my family. Yeah, I mean, also the thing, like, I have no interest. I really don't like the erudite mastermind gentleman murderer. I hate Hannibal. Fucking hate it. I hate the whole thing that's grown around Hannibal. I'm one of the people who don't, in the minority, I don't love Silence of the Lambs. That's a movie that I liked it when I first saw it. I watched it the second time, and I was like, you know what? I think this movie's got a lot of problems, and I don't enjoy it. I think the movie and it's also Hannibal's became an obnoxious character to me.
Well, there's a thing.
And once he leaves the movie's over.
Yeah, the problem is you have a character in Red Dragon that's one very interesting character. You have a character in Silence of the Lambs that is still very interesting, and then something goes fucking crazy, and those books by Hannibal, he's a vampire. He's literally a good guy vampire. It's very weird. And then the next book is his origin story, which gives him sympathy for why he became a horrible murderer, the murderer.
Well, this is very childish on my part, but I got a real problem with this genius character, these genius books, and the guy is named Hannibal, a name that you don't see anybody really have, and he happens to be a cannibal, which rhymes with his name, it just sounds like some Marvel Comics horse shit.
Well, it's
Hannibal the Cannibal. It's so fucking dumb. I mean, the movie's not dumb, but I think the movie's got a lot of problems, and I don't believe his escape. I really kind of hate the character. I think that the getup that they put him in is actually one of the funniest things ever put on a supposedly horrible, scary. That hockey faceplate they put on him on the gurney, it looks like it's a parody of a horror movie. And I love Jodie Foster in it. I think that there's a lot of creepy stuff in it. I think it's well made, but I think the structure is fucked up. The Buffalo Bill stuff is terrible, and that's supposedly.
Did you read the book?
No, I couldn't. I actually got bored with the book. I know that I'm in the minority. I know you and Brian and other people.
I love it. I don't love it as much as Red Dragon. I think Red Dragon's a better book.
Somebody just asked about the Red Dragon movie, which Manhunter, which I always heard was terrific.
Oh, you've never seen it? I think it's really
No,
good.
and Michael Mann, I liked some Michael Mann stuff early on. I did not. Again, I'm on the opposite side of the fence when it comes to something like Heat. I thought Heat was a very self-aware, kind of boring film, but
I mean, Manhunter it's got a lot of interesting style. I think the soundtrack really works. I think what's his name as Hannibal Lecter is a better Hannibal Lecter than Anthony Hopkins because he's grounded. He's just doing shit.
I just don't believe. I mean, I think the Anthony Hopkins performance is really effective, but I also think it's Fantasyland.
I think it's borderline over the top, unbelievable. And that's the thing too.
And I find the character he's just a Batman villain.
Like if you look at the books, and it's the books when they describe where Hannibal is kept, it's a very reasonable sounding set.
Well, in the movie, it's ridiculous,
right? And then in the movie, it's like it's a fucking dungeon.
He's got a VIP room though. He's living. I mean, he's in like some science fiction Logan's Run set or something.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The story with me is I loved Red Dragon. I read Silence of the Lambs first. I really liked it. I loved Red Dragon, and then I couldn't wait for Hannibal to come out. And I drove to the mall when it opened and bought a copy. And I read it that day. And people contacted me. Like Fletcher was like,
right, Hannibal. I remember that there was a huge fervor over the Hannibal book.
I finished the book, and you remember I collected books, and I was
sure.
I took the book and I threw it across the room.
Well, is this the one where, I mean, they made the movie of it, and isn't like famously they freeze people's brains and take?
Well, yeah, he eats brains. It's more of a romance between him and Starling. Like I said, he comes across as a vampire in it. He really does. There are scenes that feel like and that was really weird to me because I didn't think that Harris created that character to be romanticized. And he was an author that wrote, it took so long between books that it's like, he can't be pressured. I don't know.
It's funny that you say that he ends up becoming like, a good guy vampire, because it's like, it's that weird fucking thing where they take a character that's like this horrendous, he's a murderer, he's a horrible murderer. You're supposed to find him sexy and interesting, which I don't. I don't like, I hate genius serial killers because I just think that writers, they're almost like masturbatory. The only thing worse than a genius serial killer is one of the really foul serial killers in a really like nasty splatter film where you can tell that the writers and the directors or whoever is responsible for it are really getting a hard on for this character.
The meanest thing I'll say today is the problem I have with super genius characters is they're usually written by people that aren't smart enough to write super genius characters.
Right. There's the thing. Can you write a character smarter than yourself? And you have to contrive a lot of things to make that. And the thing about the movie is that so much of that movie hinges on, it's kind of like if King Kong, the movie King Kong, right? It would be like if King Kong, they go to get Kong, and they're supposed to get this big monkey, but they end up getting this big dinosaur, and they spend all this time fighting dealing with the big dinosaur, and the big dinosaur escapes. And that's the last you hear of the big dinosaur. Oh, now we have to deal with Kong. It's like Hannibal Lecter is that fucking movie. And he escapes.
Right.
And you go, well, because this is the book or whatever the fuck, we're done with him until the end. Let's go back to Buffalo Bill. Come on. Wait a minute. Fuck, I don't care who he's kidnapped. This fucking eating person has just gotten out of this maximum security. He beat up Charles Napier. He put a face on his face, and it really doesn't work in a movie, if you ask me, when you put somebody's face on your face.
Face
is going to fucking move. Maybe it works in the book, but in the movie, I'm sorry, nobody touches his face. Don't touch his face, or he's got a fucking leather face on.
Okay. It'll be okay, Evan. It'll be okay. Here's an interesting thing, Roger. The thing about Harris, our friend Brian, who we mentioned before and was on one of these videocasts, he and I are convinced for a long time that Harris wasn't a real person, that we thought it might have been a series
I
of people
remember you
writing.
talking about this back
And
then.
we were obsessed with this. You got to realize this is, pre-internet, and we were trying to figure out what was going on. And one of our good friends, Carl, winds up telling us this story where it's like, oh wait, yeah, I worked with these people and they knew this, and he confirmed it was a couple of people writing, but he couldn't quite remember if he was talking about Thomas Harris or not. So we for years were obsessed with the idea, because to me, if you read Black Sunday, Red Dragon, and Silence of the Lambs, and then read Hannibal, it doesn't read like the same writer to me. It's really interesting.
So what did they think, that he was a real person who was? But you thought he was a real person who was having ghosts, or he was a house?
No. I think my feeling is that someone said to Harris after, I mean, for Christ's sake, Silence of the Lambs won the Academy Award, right?
Yeah.
I think afterwards they said, you can't spend 10, 15 years writing something. And everyone loved Hannibal, so he kind of there was a question before, he just kind of read,
I guess those people don't know George R.R. Martin. They don't work with him.
Yeah.
But, excuse me, kitty, excuse me.
I
got a cat on me here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
That's great.
Yeah.
The trope of the genius. Oh,
I think what's his name?
To me, it works better in Batman than battling the CIA.
Who's the co-ed killer? Why can't I remember his name?
Because you're rejecting dumb stuff like that in your older age.
No, he's like the Rosetta Stone for Kemper.
Ed Kemper.
Yeah, he's the first
I didn't know
one.
he was called co-ed killer. I don't remember that.
Yeah, he killed women on the campus that his mother worked at.
I know. Well, he killed his mom and his mom's friend, right? Oh, geez.
Yeah.
I just remembered. I used to get Murder Can Be Fun, and I used to.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's. But the thing with him is he's an interesting character, because he killed his grandparents when he was younger and was sent to an institution. And the way he tells it is he basically gamed the system to get out. He's that, we can't put these people in institutions because they'll just figure out a way out. But Kemper's supposed to be smart. But what you mean by super smart is weird. Like Green River Killer. Is it Green River Killer?
Green River Killer?
What the hell's his name? Gary Ridgway? He killed
them all.
He's supposed to be like, his IQ is supposed to be borderline bad, really bad. But he did amazing things, to throw off cops. He would like take gum and shit from like toilets and put them near crime scenes to go like to confuse people, like where things came from. And he was
hoping Columbo would show up and arrest Patrick McGowan.
Well, the weird thing about it is there's a book called The Green River Killer that has multiple editions, and they talk about suspects in it. And books from like the 80s and 90s talk about a suspect called the truck painter. He paints trucks as a suspect. That was Gary Ridgway. That was the killer. But they just never could fucking prove it. It's insane,
Yeah. I've talked about this before, but it drives me nuts when the writer, when the writer or the filmmakers are obviously really up the ass of their character.
They're enamored by them.
It's one of the reasons I really didn't like Terrifier.
Yeah.
Did you see it, Terrifier?
No.
It's an empty fucking exercise, man. I mean, I gotta say, the things I'll say about it is that I hate clown movies. I don't watch clown movies,
right.
But everybody was talking about Terrifier. I'm like, it's one of those like one day I'll watch Scream just so I can see what I saw it, because I actually don't know much about it other than Drew Barrymore is in the opening, and that it's self-aware, and Terrifier is a cheap movie. The practical effects are really well done for the most part, and it's super gory if people want to see something super gory. And the character, on the one hand, it turns out that also this guy, because there was always a movie showing up on Tubi called like Halloween's, I don't know, it's a Halloween theme thing, and the same character's on the cover, and I'm like, what
Right,
the fuck's the deal?
right. There's a short with that character.
Clearly,
before that movie.
these they're pushing. The movie feels like, please make an action figure of our character. You know, it is so about pushing this character. They obviously
Right,
this
right.
loves his Art the Clown, but I will say the guy, the design of the character Art the Clown is really good as far as clown shit goes. It's not lazy, and the guy who plays him is terrific.
Yeah.
I just don't like anything he does, really.
Right.
I don't like the movie. It's a hallway movie.
Right.
It's a mean-spirited movie, and it's pretty dumb.
Right. I think
Very half-assed.
I feel like it's appeal. Would you agree? I think I've seen the short, the original in that Halloween anthology. But do you think it's because movies like this just aren't made anymore, and there's a real audience for a kind of
I don't know,
gory
because
slasher?
I haven't seen things like Wolf Creek or the things that I've heard that are pretty rough. The Wrong Turn movies, well, those are kind of old now.
Yeah, those are
A million Hatchet movies, and supposedly those are very
right.
over the top and kind of practical effects and people getting ripped up pretty good.
Right, but they're more and campy.
I found that, you know, without trying to become, you know, PC or anything about it, I really found Terrifier obnoxious, annoying. Is this kind of like it's retro, which means that we can not only be really, really nasty to women, but we can also be dumb and just have dumb shit happen. Yeah. And characters do dumb, make stupid choices and just throw shit in there because we trapped ourselves in an apartment building and that's abandoned, but we got to come up with a way to get characters killed. And they introduced the opening is terrible. The opening is actually so bad I almost turned it off. I couldn't believe how bad. It's the only bad effect in the whole movie, but it's an important one. It's the first gross out effect you see. It's this mutilated woman's face. She's supposed to be on a talk show, and like you would believe this talk show only if it was like 1980 and we still had cable access. I could not believe this was a 2020 or whatever version of any entertainment product made in this day and age. The acting is terrible. The direction is terrible. The script is terrible, which it gets better for good or bad after this opening. The opening sequence is just lousy, and it's not but then you know, it's not a spoiler because it's the credits of the movie. You see Art the Clown readying his implements of death, like he's, you know what I mean. He's got a million knives and he's got hacksaws.
How many knives do you need, Evan?
He needs a lot. He needs a lot. Boy,
knives.
And guns, and there's gun shit in it, and I think gun shit is lousy in a horror movie, you know, for the killers. I don't like, you know what I mean? It's like
okay.
But it's really mean-spirited. And you know, you could argue it's me. There's some guys get killed in it, but the women really get it. I mean, they get it in ways that are just like, oh boy. And I didn't find it, to be honest, I wasn't shocked by any of it. I thought it was one of those movies where it just becomes deadening pretty quickly. It's just, but it doesn't have any craziness or crazy style like a Fulci film, which I would say Fulci's films are even grosser because some of the stuff is just ridiculous. But it's such a mean-spirited, cynical, excessive, empty, but it's an empty exercise. It's an effects reel. There's no characters really in it. And the thing is, there's a scene. I actually like the opening scene to a degree that takes place in a pizza parlor. But they've already shown Art the Clown twice before the scene starts, which is to me like just absolutely amateur hour. You know, you're selling this scene as these characters are not sure whether he's bad or not. The audience is supposed to be with these characters, but we already know he's a killer. We watched them put his weapons together. You know, true. You've seen the poster. You've probably seen the trailer. There's no real surprises in movies in that regard. Okay. But for the rhythm of the movie, why show the killer before you have to? It's arguable. Nobody obviously gives a shit. Everybody loves Terrifier. Everybody
Right.
loves Terrifier
Well,
2.
well, yeah. I mean, I heard of it. Well, it's
2 hours
interesting
of
because yeah, it's like what 2 hours and 15
the
minutes.
idea of 2 hours of that shit though just
Yeah, I mean, you look.
doesn't.
I can't comment on it because I didn't see it, but I think of something like, oh God, Veronica, the Danzig.
Yeah, but I think Veronica is supposed to be like absolutely, no pun intended, artless and just incompetent.
Right, right, and
Terrifier is not incompetent.
no, yeah. I guess what I'm saying is it kind of falls at the same interest level for me. I'm not really interested in Terrifier, you know. So it's
I'm
like
yeah,
I'm probably just not going to watch them.
no, I'll probably never see Terrifier 2. There's no point. I just don't. And I also suppose there's more of a supernatural element to it, but it's so shoehorned in the first movie. Makes fucking no sense. And then that's fine. Does it make sense in Tourist Trap, which is a movie that's just fucking bizarre, where it's I'm a crazy murder, but also wasn't Carrie made money, so let's go. I forget if the Tourist Trap guy did something else that I watched recently, and I can't remember what it was, and it wasn't as good.
Oh, I always forget what the Tourist Trap guy.
He's done a couple of I think he did some Full Moon stuff or something. None of it is interesting. I mean, Tourist Trap is almost Italian in its strangeness.
Well, Tourist Trap is, yeah.
There's scenes that make no fun. He's a ventriloquist, telekinetic murderer.
Well, one thing before we get crazy on Tourist Trap, I just wanted to mention this, right?
I've never checked this out.
All right. So this is the weird thing, right? What we were just talking about, right? The Barn is a retro 80s, trying to be slasher movie.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I read about this would make me feel I would feel like I hated it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I thought it
this kind of looks cool to me. This almost looks.
Yeah, it's got some.
Doesn't it look like Empire Pictures if they went outside ever?
Yeah. It has those qualities. It will not fool you that it was made in the 80s, but it's kind of charming. It's got some interesting characters. Yeah, they're young actors. They're not the most experienced, but it works. And there's a sequel coming out which expands on it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that. But yeah, I'd be curious what you'd think of this, Evan.
It looks like there's monsters in it, so I'm game.
Because I was thinking, is there? Oh my God, my helmet! Is there a retro 80s movie like, oh, this is like in the 80s that you like?
It just seems like retro is a license to just fuck off.
But I don't think I can't remember you saying there was a movie that you go, because I know all the films you don't like. But has there been? This has been like, and I think there was a babysitter movie.
I didn't see the babysitter movies. That doesn't interest me for some reason.
No, it's another. I'm talking about something else.
Hey, Winky. The thing is, I wish that people could make the go for broke kind of 80s goofiness, but I wish that they could go, you know what? Maybe we should have the characters be a little not stupid, or the situations be a little, I don't really quite. Does retro really just mean gore for a lot of people? Because that's what it seems to mean most of the time. Because I don't think it's. I can only pick on a couple of them because I haven't watched so many. But House of the Devil, not for a minute, made me think of if you told me this is called retro, I would never think that it really captured 70s, 80s VHS days. Only because it takes place back then. That doesn't.
Yeah, I mean that was my bit. Look, I am definitely not a fan of the director. He's beloved. But I also find Kubrick cold and other directors people like. So, it doesn't work for me. There's
no, but the thing is, look, I'm honest about films. If I don't want to just pile on somebody because they're popular. I don't want to pile on something because to be cool. But I mean, I didn't find anything about House of the Devil or The Innkeepers engaging. Almost nothing. I mean, they look okay. You know what I mean? I could see everything. The acting was okay. You know what I mean? But I didn't care for the characters in either of those films. it just felt like I don't know. It felt like the equivalent of a Wilco album. It's like everybody telling me I'm supposed to like it for certain qualities, and I can't. And I'm like, Wilco is supposed to make me like Wilco, not the critics. You know, I can't get into it. I just can't get into it. And I thought The Innkeepers was in some ways even more uninteresting than House of the Devil.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, you know, I want to be able to talk about films in a way where I could say, look, I didn't like this movie. I don't want to shit on anybody. I don't want anybody not to fucking make their movies. I just want to express my experience of what I go through, who I am when I watch a movie.
It turns out when I didn't know who he was when I watched VHS when I first got Netflix, which I didn't like.
Right.
But I thought was scary in parts. You know, I thought it did a good job of being creepy and scary, but I thought it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I thought his segment was terrible. It's like the same quality. I don't mind a slow burn. I really don't.
But it's a different kind of slow burn. It's interesting to me. What makes watching?
What's the difference between a slow burn and boring?
well, why is
no real build?
Oh, Stevie's saying goodnight. Say
good night, Stevie.
Say goodnight to people, Stevie.
Happy Halloween,
people. Good night, Stevie.
Stevie.
But the thing is, let's scare Jessica to death. What makes watching a movie where a woman just basically seems scared sometimes? And again, actors that don't necessarily, you know, I don't think there's bad acting at all in Let's Scare Jessica to Death, but
it's a little creaky, but I think it's fine.
You know, it sometimes feels a little, I think regional theater.
Death, though, has an overall atmosphere that is earned honestly from some weird shit that happens and some weird characters that you're not quite sure where they're coming from. I don't think in House of the Devil, it's telegraphed right from the beginning. But this couple's not to be trusted.
Right, but
this could be a bad ending to this movie. You're in the house of the fucking devil.
If his style was more outrageous or more style, or more Bava-esque, more whatever, do you think that might change it for you? Could you?
Because Bava's stories aren't really great. I mean, you know, there's this story of actually I like the story for, you know, I think Black Sunday has some story to it, but I mean, Kill Baby Kill, Blood and Black Lace doesn't have a real thrilling story.
No, it's kind of weird.
Blood doesn't have a real thrilling story. I mean, a lot of his films.
Bay of Blood to me is an interesting.
Bay of Blood is just
to dissect. It's a fascinating.
Bay of Blood makes me laugh.
Structure, you know.
I mean, it was interesting to see Bay of Blood, a clean version of it, because when we first saw it zoomed.
Oh God! Well,
I thought it was one of the worst things I ever saw in my life.
The first time I saw it was a shitty VHS, Twitch of the Death Nerve, because that's back in the day when I was reading the yearly video guides, and I looked at the movie, and somebody said, "Oh, this, you know, Friday the 13th is ripped off from this," and I'm like, "Oh, I got to see this." So I rent it, and it's you know, pan and scan, and looks like shit.
Assholes killing each other off, and it's got one of the dumbest endings.
I think it was well earned, that ending. I think it.
It sure is based on the rest of Bay of Blood. But the thing is, you know, and you could use this argument against me on other films. Bay of Blood is all about style. It's all about style, and also, has there ever been a movie like if you went to see Bay of Blood in the theater? And the colors and the shots were clean and crisp.
Yeah.
And you had never quite seen anything like that before.
Right.
Nobody had taken that 10 little Indians and turned it into 10 little maniacs.
Right.
Well,
I think 10 Little Indians is more Night of Glass Dolls.
Right. But you know what I'm saying? You know, 5 Dolls for an August Moon. Is that what that one's called?
Yeah.
I don't like that. I didn't like that one, but you know. Right. Well, I mean, some films are completely.
This is.
I almost watched the new Suspiria, but it was 2 hours, and I was really tired.
Here's the thing, Evan. I think one of the problems that I'm having with modern horror, especially stuff that's being recommended as brilliant, is I'm going in on the mindset that what I'm seeing is a really good horror film.
Right.
And I don't think there are a lot of really good horror films. I mean, there's films I love, but the films I think that are really, really good are few and far between from beginning to end. So the thing is, I'm going in with this mindset, and I'm also and these movies really do exist mostly on their story. I don't see a lot of directors that are overly stylized, but I haven't seen things like Midsummer and Heredity, which are supposedly really interesting looking.
I haven't seen that. I didn't see, but I mean, things are also going to hit different. Things are generational. It's your brain against things. I mean, the thing is, I don't take it personally if people love Terrifier and I don't. Like I would have back in the day. I mean, you told me to calm down, but you know how I used to get. I would take it personal.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing is you used to get really angry, but you don't anymore.
Fights with people, yeah. But now I'm just like, I can understand and I can also understand people liking House of the Devil. I don't think it's a stupid movie. I don't think it's this is a painfully misogynistic, wrong-headed, politically nutty, film that I have an issue with. But as a film, I just think it's really a lot of hot air, And I mean, there's things in it that to me are just like stupid because like there's a scene where one character tries to leave the movie. The car breaks down in an area. The car breaks, your car breaks down and somehow one of the villains is waiting for them.
Right.
And to me, that is an unpardonable sin of a scene. That you can figure this out better without spending more money. If you need to have a murderer surprise somebody, you can do. I always remember that happens in what's the Philip K. Dick adaptation with Schwarzenegger, the Martian.
Oh, Total Recall.
Total Recall, if you recall, has an ending action beat where Arnold goes through all this crazy stuff. And it's a video game ending. He ends up in a place that he never was. Nobody on Earth would have thought this is where he's gonna be. And Ronnie Cox is waiting there for him. And that's a beat that drives me nuts. It happens in the Keaton Batman, the Tim Burton Batman.
Right.
The Batplane crashes right where the Joker is. That drives me fucking crazy.
Right.
When characters are there because they read the script. There is no reason for your villain to have jumped your hero or a character other than, I mean, to me, that's like fire that person, get somebody else to figure that scene out. Right. It can be done in a night. You can, you know what I mean? Have the Batplane hijacked by computer or just work it out so that it isn't millions of dollars being spent on dumbness drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And that's my review of Poltergeist 2 and 3, which I watched. Watching millions of dollars being spent on absolutely stupid stuff.
I hope this is the film I was thinking about. But Babysitter Wanted from 2008 is kind of a retro-y, this is it, a retro-y slasher film. It's a little self-aware, but not super self-aware. That for some reason I was very surprised I liked as much as I did. I enjoyed it.
I think the thing is, we've talked about it before. Self-awareness is where I think a lot of films fall down now because everybody's hip to everything. And the filmmakers are aware that the audience is aware and they're aware and they know now that they can make action. This is not every case, but they're very aware of the possible profits of making a horror icon as opposed to another kind of,
Well, look at Wes Craven. When he didn't have Freddy, he tried Shocker.
What's funny about that is that I never realized it. It's one thing. Craven didn't want to turn Nightmare on Elm Street into a series, which I did not know. Yeah. But then he wanted to recreate it because he saw the money being made.
Right.
But I actually watched the second one I revisited the second one this month, which I hadn't seen since it was in the theaters. Yeah. And I remember thinking it was terrible.
Right.
And that's a hard movie to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great documentary with the
Is there?
star Scream Queen. Let me look this up and put it on the screen. It
Because
talks about the making and the struggles that he went through, and there's a lot of issues with the writer and blah blah blah. What the intentions were.
the subtext of the movie. The thing is, you get a lot of the movie talking about the movie, and this is not the best word to use. It gets derailed into a discussion of the subtext. And
Right.
if you watch this, one of the problems is you end up wading through a lot of homophobia. Writing people who, for whether the subtext, first there's people arguing about whether the subtext is there or not.
Right, which is yeah.
And I'm like, have you seen this movie?
Right.
I mean, hold on. This sounds fascinating because I found the film very interesting, but not for the film itself. Here's a bad scene right here. That scene is terrible. It's a badly done movie. But the subtext is fascinating to me. I actually found that way more interesting, and I would have loved it. I would have liked to have seen the movie go full bore on that, to be honest.
Yeah, I remember
they were able to admit the subtext because come on. It's not even subtext in some of these scenes. Characters literally say, and you want to sleep with me instead of her.
Right. The first thing I ever saw from that movie, I was at like L'Amour's or something. And you know how they used to project horror shit on the wall between...
I only went to L'Amour's once. Yeah, the Ritz used to do that all the time.
So they had the scene, the backyard scene, where Freddy actually comes into the world.
It's awful.
And the party. And it's insane, that scene, to me. When I watch it, it's like, what the hell is this?
It's funny because they kind of do that in Freddy versus Jason, but with Jason running through a party. And it's just as stupid. But it's one of the funny things that I saw somebody who was, I don't know, I think it was Wes Craven. One of the things that Wes Craven said, and it's funny because it's funny to see a filmmaker. And I don't love Craven, but I thought I imagine you're watching two, right? And you see them going against what you wrote. Would be really frustrating.
Yeah.
And he said, and he was like, I forget what the quote was, but it was kind of like, and also you would never have Freddy. A filmmaker should never have their monster be a foot shorter than all the people in the scene. And I was like, I noticed that he's literally diminished as a horror character because he's running through all these extras and they're all teenagers. But I guess Englund is really short.
Yeah.
Because you would know that from the first movie. And that, yes, that's nitpicking, but it's very important to have there's a reason that they have up shots of characters that are dominating in a scene and down shots of the characters being dominated and film language like that, because you don't want to know, sir. Yeah. Shocker, the horror show.
Yeah, I do too. I always confuse them.
The funny thing is about Shocker, I'm trying to find it. There was a movie I watched which had a lot of Shocker shit in it.
Oh, Shocker shit.
What? Oh, the movie that I mentioned earlier that was a Italian exorcist ripoff was called The Antichrist. I thought I had already seen it.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
The thing about The Antichrist is it's credible for the first 45 minutes. No, it opens with a really creepy scene that takes seriously Italian. It reminded me of some scenes from the movie Demon, the Demon, the Italian folk horror movie from like 1960 or whatever, which is pretty wild, right. Very effective. But I was surprised at how serious it was, and beautiful locations. I mean, they seriously picked gorgeous homes, churches. It's a terrific looking film for 45 minutes. Then they go for all the last half hour is terrible. I mean, look,
is that? Do you feel that way because the story goes off the wall? Is that what
the story? I mean, it's actually got Arthur Kennedy, who was, and Mel Ferrer, who were, hoboing through a lot of Italian films then that were terrible.
Right. And
I'm sitting there going, this isn't bad. This has actually really got my attention. Why isn't this horrible? And I'm getting into it, and then it's such a letdown because then they go for the last half hour is the Exorcist stuff.
Right.
Floating floating, vomiting,
Right,
wind.
right,
It's terrible.
right.
But
Incest. Yeah.
the build up is actually some pretty good Italian Catholic.
Well, yeah, there's a great scene where
Oh,
they go where they're in like an area, a crowded area, and there's like an exorcism going on. It's been
it's
a
the
while
ultimate.
since I said,
It's all
right?
these people going up to a statue and trying to touch it or kiss it or
Right.
at being healed. And it's a creepy, it's like almost like a Fellini
I think
scene.
I think I'm thinking of a scene later where she goes there and she's like the woman, the star of the woman, she's accused of something. Maybe I'm mis.
It's a weird movie because it also starts a plot where she's possessed and she murders somebody, and they don't pick up on that again. It's like they threw that in there to get a murder and to juice the movie because the movie was a little too interesting and well done. It's a well shot, creepy little film, and then the bad effects start coming. I mean, I don't mind bad effects, but these were kind of laughable because they were, lots of superimposition. You could see the lines around stuff, and her hands come off and appear. So it was an Exorcist ripoff that worked until it became Linda Blair vomit stuff and cursing and foul. Priest, you want to fuck me? And I want a blowjob. And it actually was like beneath the first 45 minutes when they got to the crazy stuff, and it didn't work. It wasn't scary. It was like Exorcist 2 more than Exorcist 1. I watched Exorcist 2 a couple of months ago because I just felt like I've gotta.
Had you ever seen it before?
No.
Really?
No. Holy shit.
It's not good, right?
It's. I was fascinated by it the way that I was fascinated by Poltergeist 3, and to a degree Poltergeist 2, which I saw when it came out but hadn't seen since. All the Jaws sequels, Jaws the Revenge and stuff like that, where it's just like, these are expensive movies made mostly by professionals. For some reason, it's interesting to me how a lot of sequels, you find out that the Poltergeist 3 sequel or something, like they bring in a first-time writer. And I'm just like, how do you trust Nightmare on Elm Street 2 or Poltergeist 3 or whatever to a first-time writer, especially when it ends up chopping it into pieces. And I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is just wrong.
It probably because the people who are making this may not understand why the first movie worked. So if you look at you go, oh, how the hell? Nobody thought Nightmare on Elm Street was going to make any money because
no. So and the funny thing is, the second one actually made money because everybody rushed out to see it.
But that's what they say during the Friday the 13th documentary. That the problem was, you make a bad movie, no one sees the next one, which might be good. Your word of mouth that was good, and then they see the next one, which might be bad.
And now nothing has to actually open theatrically, so they can make as many. You can, Witch Board, or there's some witch movie that there's like 20 of.
Right? Yeah.
People can just. I mean, it's amazing how many Amityville, because you can just slap the name Amityville and.
I
don't even know. Children of the Corn. There's like 12 of those, 13 of those.
Yeah.
Leprechaun. But but real quick, Nightmare on Elm Street. The problem with Nightmare on Elm Street is that it's a hard movie to parse through because it's really hard to cut through a lot of the fans arguing about the gay subtext, which is the only thing of interest in the movie to me. To be honest, it gives.
Well, that's why the documentary is interesting because it talks to the writer who has always had issues with the star. And the idea that he denied subtext, and then I think he embraced subtext, and then he comes across.
Well, the movie's got a weird thing because people don't know what to make of it because it was denied by a lot of people involved with the film for various reasons. The studio didn't want that subtext to be talked about. A lot of people were quiet about it because they were in the closet.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know how you miss. It's really hard to miss it.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty blatant. They've got, and the problem with it though is that it's a film where you feel weird saying, well, the scene in the gay bar is terrible because it almost sounds like you're saying that there should be no scene in the gay bar, which is
right.
That's the thing. The gay subtext is interesting, but it's not done well,
right?
Because nothing in the movie is done well. It's just lousy. it's just got a lot of stupid shit in it. There's no reason for his parent. Do you remember the movie at all? I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I didn't remember that Hope Lang and Clu Gallagher was in it. There's no reason for them to be in it, except to have two people that you've heard of be in the movie. His parents, his family, supplies nothing for that movie except wasted film. They don't appear in the last half of the movie. They don't involve. They're not like John Saxon and the mother in the first movie. Script-wise, there's just no reason for them to be there, except he has to have a family.
Right.
I mean, there's a scene with a bird flying around. It goes on forever. It's a bird. Right. And then it bursts into flames. It's a weird idea that they go with Freddy Krueger burning to death as the motif of heat has to be throughout the whole movie. It does not work.
Yeah, and it's also weird that they changed the idea that from Nightmare on Elm Street, it's about this entity or character that somehow can fuck you in your dreams that all of a sudden wants to come out of somebody.
Why does he have to possess the person who
why does he wants to yeah why is he, because he's literally trying to come out of him.
I know and there's I mean, I think, look, I've got no problem. You want to have mostly male nudity in the film, you want to really show off the supposed female gaze, the gay male gaze, got no problem with that. There's a lot of movies out there, why not? But it's just not, they can't go full bore with it and make this a gay themed Freddy Krueger film. So the subtext is there, but the text is boring and terrible.
Yeah.
The only thing I thought that was interesting was I did not remember that Freddy Krueger is not a wisecracking.
No, not till 3. Really,
he's not a wisecracking rubberhead.
Yeah.
Because I think Freddy Krueger is actually one of the worst designed horror icons out there.
Like his appearance.
I think in the first 2 movies he's really scary looking in the second movie.
Yeah.
And he's a real fuck. The scenes just aren't good. There's no really good set piece. The one where he comes out of the kid is not bad, but it's just them looking at the first film and going, we need nightmarish scenes. And it's a decent effect, but it's possibly the only really decent effect that works in the whole movie. But he's been redesigned a little bit to really look burned. He's dark, he's messy.
Yeah.
When he becomes Freddy, the toy and everything, I never understood why he was supposed to be a cool looking character, because he looks like he's wearing a rubber mask of a anatomy figure.
The commercialization of Freddy never made sense to me for years. Do you remember in my place, I had found in the mall a sticker book, a Nightmare on Elm Street sticker book.
I remember the doll.
And I thought it was crazy, and I put stickers of like there's characters in bed with each other, and I'm like, this is a movie about a child.
He's a child molester and
killer who is killing more teenagers now in their gym. This is not, Freddy, I want to dress as Freddy. It
is the most amazing doll that was ever. You know what it was? The TV series. When the TV series Freddy's Nightmares came out, they went full.
It was totally crazy.
I couldn't believe it. There's a guy with knives on his hand, and he's he kills and probably has sex with children. And he's set on fire and burned, and comes back and kills more kids who had nothing to do with it. The first movie really is a downer.
Right. I was just gonna say this, that it is exactly like those RoboCop and other stuff movies.
It's a bizarre fucking time for all these R-rated movies to get kid-friendly.
Right, and the thing is, the first movie,
I like the first.
Is a horror film.
It's a horror film. The second movie, well, the funny thing is, the second movie runs into a lot of the same problems as the first movie. Once they get their beginning, they don't quite know where to go next. But the first movie is a lot more clever and imaginative. It's got a lot of set pieces that almost seem rote at this point, because we've gotten so much nightmare imagery and so much Freddy and so many Nightmare on Elm Street derived films. But the second movie it opens with a bus nightmare that is just terrible.
Well, is it the classic thing that the producers said to Craven, I'd like to see Freddy Krueger driving? And he's like, fuck you. It might be one of those urban legends. So, of course, that's the first thing he does.
But he doesn't he didn't want anything to do with the second movie. And it's funny because it is funny because Freddy drives, Michael Myers drives in the fourth, fifth
But
movie.
I've always he drives in the first movie.
Yeah, but we don't really see him drive in the first movie, if you know what I mean, though.
Well,
It's the car. We see the car. We see the shape. But in the fifth
we don't see him. We don't see him eating Funyuns. He's eating Funyuns and turning the radio on.
And he's going like,
security, would it be?
Dear, got 7 women on my mind. Yeah, that fifth movie, he drives after that kid for like an hour. It feels like it's funny because I like the fourth. I like the fourth movie. I actually think it's a good movie. It's some good ideas. 5 is like it's like Freddy 2. It's just a lot of. I don't like the later Freddy movies. I found them really garish and silly.
It's funny. Those are the ones I wound up seeing in the theater because I guess I was just going with my friends to see them.
Right.
And I find them so like
he kills
no teeth. They're so stupid. He's the son of 100 maniacs. He's
the second one actually has a couple. He's actually kind of scary. Unfortunately, the scenes themselves aren't very good. And I mean, it's just you're the body. You've got the body. I've got the brain. It's about as good as that movie gets. And why does he have to?
I watched Freddy's Dead just recently again. I rewatched it. And I had seen that in the theater because it was part of the 3D bullshit.
I think I saw that one. Yeah.
And it's like here's a couple of characters. Here's some Yaphet Kotto, wasted Yaphet Kotto, and it's like. It's just rote at that point. It's like
funny though. You gotta say, looking up stuff about Nightmare on Elm Street because I was really surprised at some of the stuff. I saw it in the theaters and I was really surprised. Some people love that movie. They really. But 2 things that I found: people think that Wes Craven's New Nightmare was like the best thing after the first movie, and people tend to loathe Freddy's Dead, even diehard fans.
I remember we saw New Nightmare together. Right?
I don't see the appeal.
I do
Other
not
than
like
we thought it was we got snapped up by the high concept was great.
Yeah.
But it was boring. I thought it was very boring.
It didn't work for me. I don't know what it was. It just didn't.
It had no teeth, and I just thought that it didn't give me what I wanted or expected, but it also didn't give me anything instead. I thought the idea was terrific. I liked the idea of it bleeding into reality. I thought it was a good high concept and an interesting way to go with a dead concept. But I just thought that New Nightmare was really dull. I didn't think it was inventive. I actually think that it almost kind of like went the other direction and was staid and cerebral, for lack of a better, more idea driven and story driven. And I kind of just wanted Freddy to kill people on the set or something. I just wanted to get Italian or something and just go. And also, the Freddy as a godlike figure thing kept going in there. There's the scene where he's manipulating people with puppet strings. There's a giant Freddy with a giant hand. And that to me is just silly.
I love his hat. He has a great fedora in the movie. That's my favorite thing.
See, I think Freddy is one of the funniest. I think in a lot of ways, Freddy is funny. I think that all the other horror icons, when everybody makes their videos of them breakdancing and hanging out in the yard and in the lawn chairs of Michael Myers and other people, I think that when Freddy walks off to get a drink or something, they all laugh at him because I'm sure that there's shots of Freddy of Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger without the horror makeup. Like who dresses like that? Who puts on a goofy sweater like that and a hat and walks outside other than like what, Frank Miller now or something like that? I mean, I've never seen anybody with a Freddy Krueger outfit. It's like the cops should have caught him immediately. It was that fuck with the sweater and the fedora running around. It's just
maybe he didn't wear that every fucking day like Carl Kolchak.
He does now.
Maybe he was burnt in that. Maybe that was what he wore because laundry was dirty. And he was like, I look like a fucking idiot. I hope I don't get burnt today.
I would like to see him when he goes to his car to go pick up children, right? And he's got this fucking glove. How does he get the keys started? How does he do anything? If I've got a winter glove on, I'm dropping shit. I can't. You got to take them off to tie a garbage bag when you're doing leaves out in the back or something like that.
Are you saying that if you untied one of Freddy's shoes, he wouldn't be able to chase you.
He would, exactly. If Freddy's shoelace got untied, that's it. He's gonna trip.
Yeah.
And then he's gonna try to tie his shoelace. He's gonna cut himself. He's gonna be cursing.
Oh, what a catastrophe.
Next film, because we're talking about Robert Englund.
Okay.
I rewatched Dead and Buried, another film that I haven't seen since it came out in the theaters.
Oh, I rewatched Dead and Buried I think it was this year. Yeah. There's a story about that. I know everything that was going on in that movie.
Because you read the book?
My mother did. And my mother had this notorious way where she would say, I'm reading this horror book. I love it. And she would tell me about it and scare the living fucking bejesus out of me. It scared the hell out of me.
I don't know how I got the novelization of it. I think it's by Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough.
Yes.
And I've seen people say that the book is really cool because she fixes a lot of the dumb shit in the movie.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, yeah.
It has room because the movie is fascinating this was written by the guys who wrote Alien, which is a tight fucking script.
Right.
And this movie has an amazing reputation. People love it now. It's a sleeper that people, it didn't get great distribution. I saw it in the theaters and I thought it was really good. But I did know a lot about it because I had read the book, so it wasn't a lot of surprises, but I thought it was very scary. And I rewatched it about a week and a half ago, and it's so fucking dumb. It is one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen in my life. It's got so many. If I was teaching a course on script writing, I would have people say, look, I want you to watch this maybe twice, and I want you to make notes, and let's all talk about it later. Now, it's fine that a movie has problems, but this movie is broken. It's amazing how much it succeeds at being creepy with all the fucking things that are wrong with it. It literally has teleporting, a population of people that teleport. Fuck the fact that, look, it's Dead and Buried. If you haven't guessed it, there's dead and buried people who come back to life. Fuck you. So spoilers. Here's the thing, though. They fucking teleport. Yeah. They beat people to locate. Now, if you want to talk about a movie and I'm going to spoil this movie for you people. I don't give a fuck. If you want to talk about a movie where the hero or a character shows up somewhere and inexplicably the villain is there to kill them, this is a movie where an entire fucking town shows up to kill you. It's amazing. These people are seen at the same location. Okay? There's a scene where 3 people come into town and go, we're lost. Can you give us directions to the highway? Here's your directions to the highway. They get in their car, they drive off. The next scene is them crashing their car a couple of miles away, running into a telephone pole or something, or a tree, and they see a light in a house nearby. And they argue with each other about, we have to go into this house because the kids shook up and we have to get a phone, blah, 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 blah. They go into this house and the entire town is in this house. Fucking unbelievable.
Can I defend Dead and Buried for a second here?
No.
I believe Dead and Buried.
No.
I'll mute your ass.
No. I'm putting a red X card on this one because you can stop me from defending something later on. Okay, you can, but you suck.
I think Dead and Buried works, and when it works for me, it works say Suspiria, in the sense that I think there's some really interesting visuals. You talked about it being creepy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And those visuals stick with me. I remember them. And then when you watch the movie, you go, wow, this is pretty fucking stupid. I mean, I always say Suspiria has a room where they keep barbed wire.
Sure.
You don't do that.
Right.
I mean, it's a horrifying scene.
But Suspiria is a surreal movie from the minute one. So, and this is me defending fucking Argento, which this is like me defending Dahmer, back in the day.
Right.
I hated his stuff.
But I would say that you could enjoy, I think you could enjoy Dead and Buried on the level of there's some very interesting, odd visuals in it. It is, it looks good.
Dead and Buried it's got some really good atmosphere and enough scenes to give you the creeps throughout. It's a really cheap film though. They've got a lot of characters that they don't necessarily need. They don't do a lot with some of them. It's interesting to see who's in it. There's some interesting faces in there. I didn't remember Robert Englund being there.
Right.
I didn't remember Barry Corbin from Northern Exposure being in there literally for less than a minute. They forget about certain characters because they don't seem to have use of them. It's one of those films where I don't believe the community because they don't have the money to really show the community much. It's
Right.
you know, I mean, Jaws is a movie that has a large budget, but you know what I mean? You believe these people live in this town, that this town is a certain way of life and blah blah blah. They know each other. Here's the town. You never get a sense of I forget what the name of the town is now. Shit. They couldn't even afford a helicopter to do that one shot, you know, which is, for a movie like this, they actually kind of need it, but they only show this. They show a sign. Potter's Bluff. They show the sign a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad things in the movie, though. There's a lot of just like absolutely. It turns out that a lot of stuff was added after.
Yeah.
But in time for them to actually comment, well, no, actually, because it would have been mentioned. The thing is, the opening scene is insane and scary as shit.
Yeah.
It's a very fucking weird scene. It almost borders. If it didn't have gore, it would feel like a killing scene opening of an Avengers episode, like Murdersville or something like that.
Right.
This guy is taking photos, chats up this girl who shows up on the beach who's flirting with him, and the next thing he knows, he's being brutally beaten and set on fire by townspeople who are taking motion picture and camera video shots of him.
Right.
And they're all doing it without speaking much.
Creepily?
It's really scary. I remember it scared the living shit out of me seeing it, even though I had read the book when we saw it at the, I think, Ray Theater. It's a really scary scene. But then the movie goes off the fucking rails completely because it's literally a movie where your Moriarty leaves clues that are obvious for your Sherlock Holmes, who is the dumbest sheriff on the fucking planet.
Well, I mean, the ultimate twist when you find out what's going on with this is really fucking stupid. It's creepy.
It's a 6-page EC comic, but it's blown out to an hour and a half.
I was going to say it's a short story, and you're reading and you go, wow, that's nutty. And you're not thinking about how this would possibly. So that's it. This doesn't exist in any kind of real world.
No, but it doesn't have the style, though, to pull off an Italian stylish horror movie where you're like, okay, we're in the realm of surreal. Now, that opening scene is surreal, but it's realistic, though. It's surreal because of the mood.
Well, I would say if they could crank it up to 11, I think that's my point.
But then they literally, it turns out that stuff was edited out of order from how it was shot and scripted. So there's a character who shows up before she reaches town. There's stuff that's not the fault necessarily of the original concept. But there's a murder victim who shows up in the town before she shows up in the town. The hitchhiker. Yeah. She's actually in a scene because they moved her scenes. They moved the scenes with the family. That's supposed to happen later.
Okay.
They moved it up. So you see people who haven't appeared in the movie yet, who aren't in town yet. So that's one thing. The whole scene with the, it's funny because I didn't know this. I try not to, we talk about trying not to ding a movie for things you find out afterwards that didn't occur to you, if you know what I mean.
Sure. You
see a scene that doesn't make sense. Well, you see a scene that's fine, and then you read about it. You shouldn't come back and go, "Oh my God!" But what about this? But the scene where the tramp is killed makes no sense. It doesn't work with the rest of the film, and in fact, the character even says it makes no sense. The cop, James Ferrantino, actually says this doesn't make sense.
Right.
And it doesn't. But they wanted more gore and horror stuff in the movie. It was original. Okay, so it turns out Dead and Buried was originally supposed to be a comedy.
Right. Well, this is interesting. Scott had written this before.
Yeah. It was the two writers from Alien. It was him and Ronald Shusett. And I don't think Shusett directed it. Oh, the director of this is from something else, I think the director of this is the director of Raw Meat. Or what's that, End of the Line or something, the UK film?
I'm looking that up now.
The same director. So he's decent on atmosphere and a lot of things. The scene with the people would have been maybe okay if it wasn't so shoehorned and stupid. It's a terrible scene.
Yes, he directed that, and he directed Poltergeist 3.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. Deathline. Deathline is the other name for
Yeah.
raw meat. I like raw meat. You don't. I know you
No,
said
I
you
do
do.
not.
I
I
like.
actually tried to rewatch it recently. I couldn't do it.
I thought it was okay. I didn't think it had enough set pieces, but I thought that it was an interesting film
Right.
on the whole. And I liked certain things, but I
I
just feel like
prefer
they didn't.
Donald Pleasance in Alone in the Dark than
Sure.
in that.
He's not in Alone. He's not in Alone in the Dark as much as he
He's
should
in
be.
the corner getting high.
I know. I know.
What
But
a
I really would
fucking
like to. I
idiot.
would like to have him wearing a trench coat and shooting people.
I like to believe that that's after Halloween ends and the shape disappears. I like to think that Dr. Loomis becomes that character from
He
Alone in
becomes a
the Dark.
pot smoking
Yeah,
asylum
yeah, and
director.
he just says, "Oh, let's just peace and love. Everything's fucking."
Does he teach all those? Does he teach all Martin Landau and all of them how to drive?
Yes, that's exactly
I have to make sure all of them know how to drive.
right.
And then he becomes the guy. Then he becomes the drunk in Wake and Fright.
Oh God, he's so good.
Every time I want to mention that movie to people on some kind of talk about, I feel like I start to go, "Oh, but have you seen Wake and then I'm like, I don't want to talk about Wake and Fright right now because it's a hard movie to because of the scene with the stuff with animals.
Right,
It,
right. But you could do what I do. I mean, I fast forwarded through that. I didn't watch that. I
I
couldn't.
watched it and
I had no interest in watching that. I was so interested in the movie. I was interested
yeah,
in the movie when it was still Lost. I think we mentioned this on a couple of things before, but when I read about it, I'm like, oh, I would love to see this. And I think all that it existed at that point was some television edit of it. And now that it's restored, hell, you can see it on Tubi. It's a great movie.
I
But
think it's amazing. I
it's
yeah.
I don't think it's as like a Martyr quality. I don't think Martyrs is as good per se, but I think the subject matter and some of the stuff that's shown is easily going to put a lot of people off and
Yeah,
never going to want to watch it.
it's a tough movie. It's a
Yeah,
tough watch.
yeah.
It's a really I felt like exhausted. It's an exhausting film. It's a tough film. It's and the stuff the they do the thing that to a greater degree I don't know exactly. I haven't read enough about why the hunting scene is done the way it is. I know that they did not hurt animals for the sake of the movie.
Right. I think
They
that what
piggybacked on a hunt.
right there are
Actual
I'm
bullet.
not sure if they're legitimately the idea that they were supposed to they're these hunting times because it thins the herd.
It's a culling of the animals, and they filmed while it was happening.
Right.
So it was
And
basically like they didn't kill a guy and have an autopsy for the movie. They filmed an autopsy. It is one of the it is. I did not know that shit was coming, and it was hurtful to watch. It was
right.
really
Well,
hurtful.
interesting enough. I mean, when I'm finally done with the next editing of the podcast, maybe that would be something that would make an interesting podcast for us to watch Wake and Fright and talk about it and see if the people that listen to us have any interest in seeing it or not. And,
I have it's Wake and Fright is one of these things where when we talk about a movie that's good and actually has a theme, I don't feel like I'm smart enough to talk about it sometimes, I mean, we do a decent job, but I always feel a little bit like I felt Lake Mungo and Borderlands. I was really worried, about would I sound stupid, because they're not just, movies. I mean, they're not just movies where somebody's chasing Slithis, a guy in a rubber suit isn't chasing anybody. Zombies aren't running out. I mean, they're really interesting films with stuff to pick apart.
sure.
It's like I was saying I'm really worried about Butterfly Kisses because I know I was getting punchy because we talked for 10 hours. And
Right.
I
Well, no,
talked
the interesting thing is, Evan, we talked for an hour and 20 minutes
and we dumped it.
and we dumped it. And then we talked for another 3 hours.
Really?
Yes.
We talked
I have
4
I
hours
have
on Butterfly
I have
Kisses?
4 hours and 20 minutes of us talking about this.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Well, I mean, look, one of the things
No, I didn't even realize. That's amazing.
one of the things that you have to realize is it becomes a weird thing to do when you're more interested in making sure when we dissect a movie that we go through it the story in a certain order so we could pick things apart. And
I'm almost thinking that maybe we should stop doing that, though.
No. Here's the thing. We
Yeah.
did that. We did that to the balls only in these three. We don't do that in every film. We didn't do that from the depths. We didn't do that, No, these were films that we really wanted to talk about in a way that made it like, here's a scene. If we're going to talk about a scene in Lake Mungo, I think we have to explain it. I'll say this. Look, I trust Stevie isn't, blowing shit up my ass. But she told me the other day, she was like, hey, look, I want to watch. I know you've seen Borderlands a lot recently, but, because Stevie, the thing is, Stevie listens to the podcast after I edit it. Right. So she could tell if I've done anything that I just couldn't hear because I've been spending.
You always need to do. I just did a cartoon for the Patreon about writing and about sometimes you need a fresh pair of eyes on something because you get stuck or you can't step outside the work. Yeah.
Right. So it goes through Stevie. If Stevie says she didn't hear anything weird, I send it to Evan and then he listens to it. But the thing is, we wanted to do things differently, and I found it interesting. Yeah, I don't think if we do, I don't think we would do that necessarily with,
girls school screamers.
Yeah, or Appointment with Fear.
Do you know what's great? Somebody brought up Dr. Robert Fisher to me the other day, and I fucking was so cracked up. I love. We gotta have Dr. Robert Fisher.
I was thinking he hasn't appeared in a while.
I love Dr. Robert. I'm Dr. Robert Fisher.
I think maybe the next podcast we should do is some jerky films that are actually we enjoy.
The thing is also these films are very structured. All three of them are.
Well, yeah, this was just
structured. Yeah. It's so funny. I'm really glad that I got to see Borderlands. Good night.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Halloween.
Yeah, thank you.
But the thing is, Wake and Fright is a movie that I feel like I might feel outside my comfort zone or even discomfort zone because culturally, it is such an Australian film that I don't know if I would be able to articulate it correctly. Some of the things about, certainly because I don't know much about Australian male toxicity or drinking culture. I mean, you can see it. It's an amazing movie. I've never seen a horror movie that didn't have a lot of horror in it, but was absolutely horrifying.
I'm not even sure. That's weird.
I see it listed as a horror film.
I'm not even sure it's a horror film.
I'm not sure either, but I've seen people talk about it in terms of folk horror.
Well, definitely, you could definitely. I think that works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's about people in a place.
And shaped by the place, and that the place is almost cursed. That the people are almost cursed. If you want to make that jump.
Well, it's about a man who goes to a place, and he thinks himself, quote unquote, above all these other people, and then he intermingles with them, and these people are hyper fucked up.
It is in modern terms, it is a super male toxicity.
Yeah.
There's drinking, fighting, gambling, fucking, killing, shooting.
Right.
And it's proposed that this is not necessarily abnormal behavior for some people.
Right, but I think the film is saying that that it's bad.
Yeah,
that it's ultimately bad for everyone. There is such a to talk about this, just to talk about the arc of Donald Pleasant's character when we meet him to the end of the movie.
Yeah,
it's a fascinating thing.
And it is a sweaty, dirty, hot, miserable, drunk. I mean, you get a contact drunk from this film.
Yeah.
I mean, he is. It is a movie where everyone is drinking, and if you're not drinking, there's something wrong with you.
Literally, they're pushing it on you because it's showing disrespect for not doing it.
It's like, and it's a tough movie. The movie feels like it's taking place. Well, Australia is almost like another world, and I mean, I've made this joke about Australian movies that no Australian movie has made me ever want to visit Australia. They're all terrifying. most of the ones I've seen have had to do with the outback. They've had, and they're terrifying. They're scary.
Right.
They're either post-apocalyptic, crazy. They're the only thing that's not in Wake and Fright is they don't have insane motorcycle and car sequences. You know,
right? There isn't a guy building a car with spikes.
Right.
You know?
Nothing gets shoved between the wheels.
Right. Your eyes pop out. That too. Right.
It does not have a lot of. But I mean, Paul and I, is Next of Kin Australian or New Zealand?
I believe it's Australian. I will double check.
That's a movie that takes place in like a neighborhood for the most part, and you don't want to visit Australia, and it still has car craziness at the end, and shit going mad. I mean, Road Games. I don't want to go to Australia. Stone, a movie about a cop infiltrating a motorcycle gang. I do not want to go to Australia.
Did you watch Stone?
I watched Stone a few months ago. Remember, we were talking about it with Steve on one of the Thursday night things. It's brutal.
Right. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Brutal.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you think about the science fiction films, there's the one that there's Dead End Drive-In. Is that it? I've never seen. Wait a minute. Scott points out Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I have not seen that, but I think I did see Strictly Ballroom.
Right.
That did not make me scared to go to Australia. Is that Australian?
Right. I also watched, and Next to Kin is Australian. I just watched a weird Australian comedy that was about an inventor. I'll never be going to be able to find this name without going through stuff because I wasn't keeping it listed.
There's horror-wise, there's Sweet 16, an occult movie that's a sort of folk horror. It's in the Severn.
Right. I didn't finish that. Right.
I watched that about a couple of years ago. I just
Razorback.
Oh, I've never seen Razorback, but I know.
I haven't watched that in years. I found it not that interesting to me.
That's Steve Railsback?
It's Steve's Railsback, yeah.
Does he play the Razorback? Is that what is Steve Razorback?
Yeah, that's the twist.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I've not seen Picnic, and I've not seen Walkabout.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
I rewatched this. I did this kind of classic Ozploitation a while ago.
Yeah.
And I rewatched Picnic at Hanging Rock, and I found it an interesting movie. Talk about like deconstructing that as a folklore.
I need to see that. I've never seen.
And Walkabout's interesting. It gets a little, kind of like, okay, the beginning is fucking terrifying.
That's the thing. Australian films are like, Mars. Oh, The Last Wave. That's Peter Weir, I think.
Right. I like that. I watched that too during that time. I found it interesting.
Is that the one that's got raining fish or something like that? Or I can't. There's an Aborigine and there's two.
There's a lawyer.
Remember the ad?
What's his name? He's defending some Aborigine. There's talk of kind of religion where it shouldn't be, and that. I mean, you don't get more folk horror-y, I think, than The Last Wave.
I'm trying to remember. I watched a couple of things that are on Tubi that are on that box set, and one of them was pretty interesting. They were interesting. They weren't great. I don't think I'll be able to find it. But the two films that are on the box set, there's I think three or four Australian films on that Severn box set. What happened? Cats?
No, I knocked it over like a dope.
Your Palantir. What are you hitting it for?
That's how you change the color. I don't have the app doesn't work anymore, and I can't find the remote. So I could do that. This is all I could do.
It's kind of like a clapper, but it's a slapper. That's good. Okay, pick a color. Pick a color, Paul.
This is what I want. You wanted to know what was going on. For Christ's sakes.
All right, I'm sorry.
My
I wish
God.
I could remember the names. One of the names of the films is hard for me to. I could never remember it because it's an actual Aboriginal name of a character or place name, so with an A, I think. One of them was a film about. It was like. I wish I could remember it. Another one was about a woman and her father. Her father is digging at a site that he's not supposed to dig at. It had some really good stuff in it, and then it fell apart. Shit, that's not helping. If you don't know the name of it, then shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
All right, so.
Let me bring up
Did you ever see a found footage film called Savage Land?
No.
People were mentioning it quite a bit in found footage threads on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and some people had mentioned it when I said we were doing stuff about Borderlands and the rest. It's interesting. It's got a very interesting angle.
Is this in 1815, an American legend, blah, 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 whose wife, is that what I'm looking at?
No, Savage Land takes place in a border town, I think in Arizona or Texas. I'm trying to remember now. And it's about the arrest of a Mexican guy who the problem is it's really hard to swallow the concept. They believe he wiped out this small town overnight.
One man.
Yeah, like 52 people.
Okay.
And it's a found footage film that the interesting tack is to get around usual found footages. He's a photography buff. As he ran around, he took photographs of what was going on in the town, and they're not in great shape because a lot of them are whipped around or they are whip panned. The figures are hard to see. A lot of it's at night. It's got a really creepy atmosphere because of what it's not saying, because you're filling in the horror stuff until the end. Because viewers steeped in horror movies go, oh, okay, you sort of figure out what's going on here. It's creepy. It's not all that believable.
Okay.
But the creepiness in the angle is interesting enough. Also, very interestingly, I don't know if they show him I did not realize this. I thought this guy looked very familiar, but a guy who plays a photographer in this movie is actually the late comic book writer Len Wein.
Really? Wow.
I never heard anybody talk about this, that Len Wein's in this found footage movie, and he does a good job. I was like, I guess they got a photographer. No, it's Len Wein. That's why I recognized him.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it doesn't do what it sets out to do is very interesting, because a lot of the reason that shit goes down the way it goes down is because of racism, of a sheriff that wants to put stuff to rights. But it pushes it a little too much. The story is pushed a little too much for believability. But I like some of the creepiness, because what they do is there's a guy who believes his story, and the documentarians do a walk through the town. They follow this guy as he walks through the town and says, well, he was here at this point, and he says he saw this. And then they'll, after about like 30 minutes, the film starts to lay out the 32 photographs the guy took.
Okay.
So the thing is, there's a creepy mood because, creepy photographs like we get in Weird New Jersey or
right.
Just creepy when you think you see things like ghost photos in the stills in Lake Mungo with Alice are really creepy.
Right.
The non-footage. So you've got the creepiness of, things black and white photos that are really weird, and the mystery, even though you kind of feel like what's happened, the details don't fall into place. They really beg credulity. Okay. But you've got these 32 photos to go through too, and that's kind of like a clock in a thriller. You've got a countdown, so the tension is really nice. So it's a movie that if you can put away your come on right off the bat, anybody who believes somebody killed 52 people overnight, right. and the movie itself basically is unbelievable.
Is it better than any of the 3 movies we reviewed?
No.
Okay.
No, but it's a flawed, interesting ride.
Okay.
Because the found footage is all photographs, and a couple of tape recordings, which I don't think are phone recordings. Which it's kind of like the thing you were talking about, Night of the Creeps. That tape recording is kind of forced in. There's a phone message in it because they couldn't quite laying out a movie as somebody is recreating the journey and what happened and talking about it is an interesting idea, but it's not exciting. Yeah. The photographs are interesting, but these photographs are limited in how much they can tell of the story. So they do this dance, and there's a couple of times where I think they make some bits. I think the movie needed somebody to look at it and go, how about we take out this? How about we add this? How about we tighten this? But I found it a suitably creepy movie.
Okay.
The problem is you can never really believe the overall story that this guy that there's not more of an investigation into this thing, even with racism, even with nobody would believe that this murder of 52 people, if it was the story that the public was given, it would still be the story of the year in crime.
Right. Okay.
It's just too much. It's just too much. It happens in a small town, but it's an interesting movie because it's just not the kind of thing you're used to seeing. I mean, it goes straight to racism as a reason for why things are happening. People on both sides talk about it. It's not people pointing and clicking and yelling, "Look over there." It's interesting. I can understand why people like it, but I think that the center does not hold.
Well, it's interesting to me. We're talking about how what we like versus what we don't. Here it is, The Borderlands, right? A film that sets up the possibility of some kind of possession or miracle or something, and then it gets kind of Lovecraftian and folk horror, and you accept that for what it is in that movie. But this other movie, because it seems to be more based in a real kind of setting, that number of murders over the night just kind of threw
not only that, but they basically do stuff that if you were watching a documentary and they went this and this, it's like, well, that's impossible. Literally, there's stuff that's impossible.
Right.
And they know it. It's just they strain. You know what I mean? The bag breaks, but it's interesting. I think it's interesting enough for people to definitely check out because it's an interesting attempt that just the high concept cannot. The high concept doesn't. The story doesn't support the high concept, or vice versa. But I found the movie creepy because of. I found the movie creepy, but it's just it's a movie that's illogical.
But do you feel like if it's possible, could they have structured it differently? Could there have been scenes in the beginning that possibly put you in a state of mind to accept the world that you were given? So did they rush into it's the real world and this is crazy, this can't be happening?
No, it's the problem. The problem is for things to work. The film could use a good story edit before they did it, because I think that the thing is the photographs are creepy, but they're not enough. But they are creepy.
Okay.
But I mean, you can go online and see creepy photographs and creepy, you know what I mean? The structure is interesting, but I don't believe it just pushes the logic too often. Right. And I agree. And that's the thing. The Borderlands, I mean, Butterfly Kisses has insane, crazy stuff happening, but the way it's presented, I believe it.
Right.
For the movie. I believe Lake Mungo is very believable.
Right. I've always liked the fact that Lovecraft made me feel like most of this shit I could just shoot in the head and maybe kill. That it, you know what I mean? That there's the
ground stuff, not the gods, but not the you could pop. Well, he never brought in a second miracle, generally, unless it was a whatchamacallit. What was the name of that thing? In the From Beyond, the Tillinghast, thing. He didn't really bring in super science. The Reanimator stuff is credible enough.
Well, it's mostly pulpy comedy, that stuff.
Right. Yeah, Reanimator fascinates me because it's like everybody says that it's supposed to be a comedy, and I'm like, I don't know. I guess. I mean, I find parts of it very funny. And I think what's interesting about the Reanimator adaptation, because people talk about how it's not really Lovecraft and this and that, but I think that the Resonator, the Tillinghast Resonator, which I just absolutely love, I want to sell them door to door. Tillinghast Resonator. But I think that what's interesting about Stuart Gordon's adaptation of Reanimator is that they really they run the ball not with the zombie stuff as much as his character. They really take that obnoxious character of Herbert West and go with it, and luckily they got Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah.
Because there's a movie where if you had somebody, if you had a Jeffrey Combs in Night of the Creeps or somebody where charisma and somebody who really can get into the role just elevates. I mean,
he always makes it. When I find out he's in something, I go, oh, it's going to be better There's
He's
that,
one of the
what's that Christopher Lambert prison in a like satellite movie that's stupid, and he's the best thing in it, hands down.
You don't remember? It's not called Prison because that's the Prison is the one
Prison.
The executed guy. That's also a Stuart Gordon, I think.
Is it? Let me look it up.
The only thing that's not good is I watched that version of Dreams in the Witch House that was cut from a movie, and then it's lousy.
There's an adaptation on Netflix because Del Toro has a thing called
Curiosities.
Yeah, and they did it. Yeah,
people seem to like the show.
It's not the story. It's literally not the story.
Yeah,
so why call it Dream in the Witch House and introduce it as being look, maybe it is the story. Maybe it is after 10 minutes. It's just like,
well, that's the one where there's the student and there's angles in his room and the rat face comes out and the rat face.
And this shows mediums.
Did you ever see the Stuart Gordon version?
Yes.
It's got the three leads from Reanimator. And it's awful. It's just awful. The funny thing is that the guy who's the head, the guy who gets his head cut off in Reanimator, plays the fucking Brown Jenkin, and it just looks like that guy's head got stuck on a rat.
Yeah, I don't know. I really feel like that's a tough one to make close to, you know what I mean?
It's got a lot of elements that I think visually are silly and work I like the Dreams of the Witch House story. But Brown Jenkin is going to look like shit almost no matter how you do it. And it's about math and a witch and a rat face, and it's got some silly shit in it. But, I mean, there's a reason that most Lovecraft stuff fails, because a lot of it shouldn't be envisioned. The color out of space should never be shown because it's supposed to be a color that you've never seen before. And it's purple. Yeah. I've seen good and bad on the Cabinet of Curiosities. I mean, somebody told, I forget who it was. Somebody wrote me, or on Twitter or something like that the Mandy creators did an episode.
Oh, really? I'll check that out then. No, I didn't.
It'd be 5 hours long of a rat.
Well, it's one of my problems with, like, Del Toro's another director. He leaves me cold. I think he did beautiful stuff. I mean, I'm not saying stuff. Unbelievable, but there's something about him that
I haven't seen enough of his stuff. I remember we watched the movie with the same name as the robot in the 50s. Called
Robbie.
No, the literally animated robot. It's a black box that sucks power out of stuff and crash. It's a 50s movie where this giant black robot.
Oh, right. The monolith.
The one with no, that's the monolith monsters of the crystals. The giant
they're the crystals.
The first one we saw that had he made it in Mexico. It's about the vampire, the clock. I think the watch. Ron Perlman's in it. It's small. We watched.
Oh, Kronos.
Kronos. That's it.
Right. We actually Kronos. Right. Thank you. Yeah, Kronos
is small and kind of tight. That's not funny.
No, we got this is like
Kronos.
Then it's Kronos. Sorry.
Kronos.
Yeah. No, the thing is, I had seen people talk about that, and it was playing in Manhattan, and I was like, I really want to see this. I think Kronos is fucking terrific.
Yeah, we all
really like Kronos.
But I know Mimic wasn't his film.
I didn't like
it, but
Mimic.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Mimic, I mean, there was nothing there at all of Mimic. Mimic was just junk.
Right.
It was terrible. Right. I haven't seen much. To be honest, I haven't seen his films that people love. Hellboy was amiable but not good. It really left me wanting. I thought there was beautiful stuff in it, but I haven't seen The Devil's Backbone. I have no interest in seeing his creature. You know, I fucked the creature from the Black Lagoon movie.
Did you see Pan's? So you didn't see Pan's Labyrinth?
No, I didn't see Pan's Labyrinth. I didn't see Hellboy 2.
Yeah, Pan's Labyrinth, to me, that's one of the disconnects with me. It feels like you take all the ingredients that you need to make this perfect meal or whatever, and it's all in there. And for some reason, it didn't jibe for me. It just does not come together. I don't know.
Seem dull to me. They're beautiful. They're lyrical. I have to see the really good ones.
Yeah.
But that movie with the creature, it's funny how it's like even in horror, that got an Oscar, right?
Yeah.
And people stop talking about it.
Yeah.
The Oscar kills talk about things, even a horror movie. Except actually, people did not stop talking about um, uh, Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
But I forgot he did that movie. Yeah, I'd like.
Yeah.
He's such.
I think the Devil's. I don't have as many issues with the Devil's Backbone, but it literally feels like a psychological thing. Like I don't have what it takes
Yeah,
to
sometimes you
understand.
don't.
Like I just it
Sometimes you
doesn't
don't.
work for me. Yeah.
I don't connect. We don't connect to Ty West at all.
Yeah.
He's very popular.
It's the weirdest thing.
I don't connect to James Wan, though. I don't connect to that Conjuring style.
I think
Although I
he's
want to see Conjuring.
right. I think he's a very interesting director, well, it's weird.
Because you like Malignant. Malignant made you happy, right?
Yeah, because it was so stupid.
I want to see Malignant, but was it on Netflix? I think it got pulled.
No, I think it was HBO Max.
Ah, I see. I don't have that. Yeah. But yeah, I thought so. What? So what else? Is there anything else? We're getting pretty late. So you want to run through anything quick?
Anything? I mean, I liked. There's a thing called Necrotronic. I'm sorry,
This beat is Necrotronic. This beat is Necrotronic.
Well, I'd pump up the jams.
Pump it up while your feet are stumping.
This is interesting for me. I don't know what other people would think about it. I watched it without Stevie, so I'm almost curious to rewatch it. So this is a very interesting.
Oh, I think you have that on your Plex.
It's obviously Ghostbusters. It's trying to be Ghostbusters without a lot of money. And it visually also reminded me of the Frighteners, and it has a lot of the Matrix in it. But it's got these really kind of likable characters, a lot of likable characters.
That's always good.
And a ridiculous villain, and a world that you could easily turn into sequels or role play with, and that. And
they're crossing the streams there. Yeah.
Right. I don't know if this is something that everybody would like. I feel like if you watch this at a certain age, I could see this being a beloved movie.
It's funny because you look at
love it.
That film reminds me not the same way at all, but I watched something called Deathgasm recently.
Oh, sure. I didn't watch that.
There are certain films and you wonder why you haven't heard of them because they're fairly modern and you feel like now everybody has better access to everything. So why hasn't this become a Terrifier or a Tucker and Dale? Not that they're as good or that, you know what I mean? But it's amazing how many fucking movies there are out there and how easy it is for stuff. I had never heard of Juan of the Dead. I think I had heard of Juan of the Dead a few years ago or something. Right. But I watched it recently and I thought it was fun.
Oh, really?
It was an movie. I mean, it's very Shaun of the Dead in a way. You got slackers and he's got an asshole overweight friend. It seems like that's also in Deathgasm to it. Yeah. Actually, it's more like the slacker with his asshole friend in Deathgasm. But what's interesting about Juan of the Dead is that it is a very Cuban film.
Oh, interesting. So
it's funny because I mentioned it that I watched it on Twitter. Somebody talked about liking it, and the director of the film responded to them.
Wow.
Which I was like really surprised, but I didn't want to. I kind of wanted to tell the guy I really enjoyed your film, but then I thought that I'm not good at putting myself out there. But Steve asked if I had seen it, and I said yeah, I thought it was fun. The thing it's a film with not a lot of money that does some. I mean, it's the zombie movie. You know what I mean? Okay. It's a bunch of fuck ups versus zombies, but there's a couple of scenes that I laughed out loud, just like Shaun of the Dead. It is not breaking new ground as a zombie film necessarily, but its culture is so important to the way the characters act and react. And there's so many jokes about Cuba, and it's very funny on that level as well.
Right.
So while you've got British culture in Shaun and pub culture and other things like that. I mean, a lot of what Shaun of the Dead is closer to what an American zombie film like that would be. Look at them; they're the same. Shaun of the Dead will remind you of Shaun of the Dead, but it doesn't feel like it's a derivative sensibility.
Okay.
It's a very Cuban sense of humor in some ways. Now, I don't know a ton about Cuba, but a lot of the jokes are broad enough or pointed enough. There is also some really good sick jokes and gore, just like Shaun of the Dead or films like that. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
And the characters are definitely not the same. They're people who are living under the eye, a little bit, out of the way in Cuba and getting by any means necessary. It's a very different. They don't go to a job. They're not getting married. You know what I mean? Really interesting, and they take a very different take on where it veers is into how they respond to the apocalypse.
Right.
And there's some really creepy stuff in it. I mean, it's fun the same way Shaun of the Dead is, but it definitely is its own thing because it digs heavily into its own culture as a source of humor, and as there is one scene in there. I won't say what it is, but it's a scene that involves the authorities later on in the film that I laughed out loud. I couldn't believe how nuts it was and how it plays out. It's just like that must have been uncomfortable for them to make this scene for everybody involved. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I watched Rec 3, which everyone hates.
Yeah.
And I think people would like Rec 3 if it wasn't called Rec 3.
I don't. Rec 3 is the
wedding.
The wedding. Yeah. I don't think there's anything. I like Rec 3.
I thought it was perfectly fine. The problem is the change in tone. The full change in tone pisses off a lot of people because.
Well, wait till you see 4.
I have
4 is awful to me. I hated 4. I was
people don't even talk about 4, but 3 is hated because it's a comedy.
Yeah, but it also fits in the line, and I like the change of tone. I mean, they literally grab the guy with the camera and say, "Fucking put down the camera. Why are you holding this camera?" And they follow an interesting. It's got an interesting, the prayer stuff. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I didn't have a problem with that, and I thought that it was engaging, fun, has a memorable ending.
Yeah.
Has some creepy, crazy deaths in it, and some funny, crazy deaths. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not a doom and gloom movie like Rec 1 and 2. It's got a lot of funny stuff in it, and but I thought it's a perfectly fine zombie comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also thought it was interesting the way, whether you like it or not, I thought it fit into that first movie nicely. You got the dog without hitting you over the head and using all the cameras in the control room, and you can see things that are going on at the same time. I also didn't love Rec as much as a lot of other people.
Yeah, I really like Rec. I like Rec 2.
I did not like Rec 2 at all. I did not like Rec 2. I found it, and the thing is, did they want Rec 3 to be the same fucking thing? Because Rec 2 is a lot of the same.
That's what I think. And Rec 4 is kind of Rec 1 and 2, the conclusion of that story, and I hate.
I mean, I think Rec is scary. And I think it's well done. I don't know. I just didn't find, and I like the idea of it being firemen and this and that. But
I like the idea that you were getting some kind of holy virus, some kind of. I liked the magic of it. I liked what was going on.
That, but I didn't like the ending. I didn't like when it kind of felt like they crammed in at the very end this Call of Cthulhu game thing where everybody starts reading the walls and all the notes and everything. It just kind of really got shoehorned in at the end. And I have no problem with the religious aspect with it, the mystical occult belief, stuff going on. I actually thought, why the fuck not? Why not have a religious based plague, an actual demon? I don't have a problem with that. And to be honest, I don't have a problem with priests being able to stop the zombies by
it's just goofy.
It's goofy. you know what? It builds into the people who believe in that shit better than a lot of movies do. I mean, it makes as much sense as any science fiction horror movie kind of does.
Have you seen the American versions?
No, I didn't know that was
Yeah,
actually
there's
done.
Quarantine and Quarantine 2 are remakes of. Yeah, I think I like Quarantine 2.
Really? I also think people are probably upset that they dropped the found footage in 3, which I thought was interesting. And it's funny, but it's a well-made film.
Yeah, Quarantine 2 is kind of interesting. Yeah.
I like 3 more than 2 because to me 2 is, I can't even remember 2 other than there was possession.
Well, you didn't like the way it integrated with the first film. You didn't like the way when they showed, oh well, this was going on, this was going on. I don't
mind that, but I just didn't think anything. I just didn't think it was of interest. There wasn't enough going on in there. It just felt like more people in tight corridors.
Yeah, it kind of felt to me in some way the way Demons
I felt like you could take scenes from Rec 2, dump them into Rec 1, and nobody would notice the difference.
I kind of thought of it as like Demons and Demons 2. There was something weird about that I enjoyed.
But Demons 2 has a but Demons 2 is kind of bad. Demons 2 is
Demons 2 is the movie that every time you watch you realize is nowhere as near as good as Demons.
I remember really liking Demons 2 more, and when I rewatched it, I went, wow, Demons 2 sucks.
Yeah, it's got a lot of.
I don't mind but bad effects, but it's campy.
And you hate the church. I love the church.
No, I didn't like the church. I thought the church was stupid with not much to. I mean, I hated the music. I hated that the music box of fucking people from hell. It was ridiculous and contrived. The girl character who just keeps going off to discos develops into nothing. The priest with the bow and arrow doesn't even use it in the movie, even though
church is a big like fucked up weird thing though.
But I like the beginning of the movie where they're like setting up that this is a weird thing, but then they
I don't know. Do you like the beginning of movies like fucking Holy Grail? That it's like fucking Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I mean, the beginning of the church feels like they're just doing that because it's the medieval when they,
Yeah, but I didn't mind the I thought that I mean I don't know how to pronounce Michael Suave's name. If it's Suave. It's funny though. The more Italian films you watch, the more often you see him getting killed in strangest films. Like he's in a cave getting killed by zombies here. He's got the mask on and demons. He just keeps showing up and shit. It's really funny. But I mean, it's really, really well. And all his films are well shot.
Yeah.
The Sect, The Church.
I couldn't get through The Sect.
The Sect is terrible. The Sect is absolutely terrible. It's just this woman jumping in a well and walking down a hallway, and Herbert Lom having the shakes.
Yeah,
it's awful. The Sect is terrible. But the church just doesn't do it for me. It just collapses in silliness, and it just becomes like Carrie Exorcist stuff. Nonsense stuff of shit flying around. I don't really like movies where shit flies around. Scissors are flying, and then this, and kill. The characters that all get killed off. Almost all the victims in the movie show up 50 minutes into the movie. That whole wedding party. I mean, even for an Italian film, that's choppy. That's really weird. That they literally bus in victims. They practically wear red shirts and walk in, and they get trapped in the church, and it's just like there's no setup for that. Even if they just said we booked a wedding at some point, because you're spending all this time with the priests and with is it Asia Argento?
Yes. See,
that's bad right there. Jeffrey Combs adds.
Hey, Jacob. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jeffrey Combs is added value. Asia Argento is, for me, minus value. I think she's a terrible actress.
Well, let me since it's getting late, let me add, I guess, one other thing I'd like to talk about, because this is a very oddball film.
What the hell is this?
All right.
Never heard of this.
This was on Shudder. So's the other one.
I still have to do the Shudder try. Yeah,
I want you to watch a bunch of movies on there.
Hey, real quick. I bought these pens, right? I needed pens. My pens are running out. I'm working on the new Beast of Burden. I'm doing a lot of hand notes because my hand's fucked up on the keyboard. And I bought these Sharpie gel pens. Has anybody worked with it? They suck. If anybody knows anything about pens and art, I'm just very annoyed. I'm sorry, but it's like I know some people are cartoonists who hang with us, and I I feel like I've been hoodwinked. I mean, Sharpie is, my cat. If I write, okay, here's the thing, real quick. If I write, or if I'm drawing, Winky will run over to me and start attacking the pen. She's doing. She stop, baby. She does this. Stop, stop. When our kid is using this Dremel thing on her projects, the cat will attack the Dremel. She will not let stop. She will not let me write. This is stop. She's beating. She's biting it now. All right, show us your film. I'm sorry, I'm off.
Oh, okay. You sure
Oh
you're
wait,
done talking about fucking pens, right?
I'm sorry.
So
74.
it's a very this is a very weird movie. You know, I could argue that
Oh, it's got Elizabeth Taylor in it. I can't stand that for some reason.
yeah, I could almost argue you could think if it's maybe is it's a thriller, it's giallo, it's weird, it's like Shirley Jackson or De Mornay or something like that. It's this, but the choices they make in the acting
Yeah.
and just the way it works, it's fucking weird. It is very, very weird. It is not necessarily good,
Right.
but it is so weird. I could not turn it off till I figured out what was going on. And the final reveal was actually almost worth watching the whole thing.
It sounds good. I mean, I wish I liked Elizabeth Taylor more, but
she's terrible in this.
I've never been a fan. It's just something, even from childhood, I just never found her. Or Richard Burton, interestingly enough, because I almost succumbed to the Medusa touch, as bad as I know it's supposed to be, because it looks hilarious. And it was another, I'm trying. I would like to watch, like we talked about in like our first episode. I would like to watch all the movies that I remember the ads. All the movies that were coming out when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Watching a ton of television. There's still movies that Tubi has so many of them now. These services have so many of these damned films. So I've finally got to see Psychic Killer, which was not good, but if you watch it as a TV movie, as a pilot, you go like, these characters, wouldn't mind seeing these police characters and the psychic taking on other cases, but it's not a very good movie. But I mean, on TV movie, the interesting thing is TV movies, because they would disappear. I just watched Prototype, which wasn't great, but it was Levinson and Link.
Yeah, I like Prototype a lot. Hello?
It's cute. And the funny thing is, I'm watching going, this is like if this was a TV movie.
I'm sorry,
it turned out
I
it was
think
a
you
TV
cut out
What's the
for
matter?
a second. You cut out for a second, so I didn't hear what you said at the beginning of the program.
Oh, I didn't know it was a TV movie when I was watching it. Felt very much like a television movie. It's a cute little film.
Yeah, it's the spiritual successor. You watch that with the Quester tapes.
I haven't seen the Quester tapes. Yeah, I always wanted to.
Quester tapes? Wow.
Well, that's the thing. All the stuff that how was I? Actually, didn't the Quester tapes one of the TV movies that did get syndicated and shown?
Yeah, that was like one of the things that on Channel 2 at night you could see.
Sure.
It, on a
The
Saturday
thing is,
night.
yeah, I want to track down the stuff that was in theaters that I missed because I was scared, and then I just couldn't see everything.
Sure.
And then I want to track down the stuff that I missed on like Spectre. It wasn't good, but I always wanted to see Spectre. It's Gene Roddenberry doing.
Oh, so you've never seen Spectre? Yeah, it's a shame.
I saw it recently. I mean, Robert Culp as a cult detective. That sounds good to me. As far as a kid, I probably would have liked it, but
the middle is like fucking.
It's meandering like a lot of TV. It's slow, and the end is cheap and funny looking. But I mean, if I ever am in the hospital, I'll watch that Nimoy thing where he becomes psychic after a car accident.
Baffled?
I had never heard of that until recently.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, that used to be on like Channel 5 when we were a kid. I watched that a bunch of times.
Never heard of it. I never saw the Quester tapes. I always wanted to see that. I never saw the Norlis tapes.
Yeah.
Which is Dan Curtis, I think.
Yeah, I saw that. That was hard to track down, I remember years ago. It's interesting, but I certainly wouldn't have wanted to see that continued as a series. The concept really didn't work for me as much.
I'm probably going to revisit The Night Stalker now that you have that on your Plex. Haven't seen it in a few years.
Yes, I share movies that I own legally on my Plex with Evan. Don't put me in jail.
Nobody's going to put you in jail.
Don't put me in jail.
Yeah. The thing is that I'm trying to say real quick though, I mean, because we can talk about. I watched because I don't know if Scott's still with us, but you put it on your Plex. You got it for your Plex. You picked up The White Reindeer.
Yeah, I wanted to watch The White Reindeer because Scott had reviewed it.
Why I wanted to see it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I have not watched it yet.
It's definitely folk horror. It's definitely not you know what I mean? It's a Scandinavian film. I found it in a lot of ways, and what people were saying about it is that it's got elements of a documentary. It's got elements of silent film. It's got elements of folk horror. It's a fairy tale. I really liked it. It's not horrifying or anything like that.
Right.
But if you like, it reminded me a lot of 50s and 60s Japanese films.
Yes, the little I've like when I watched.
There's a lyrical quality to it. There's a quality of music, the way music is used, the way the fantasy is handled, long shots, atmosphere. Oh, that's Lake of the Dead. I liked Lake of the Dead.
Yeah, Lake of the Dead reminded me. I had watched that recently. Yeah. That's also on Shudder. I
liked it. That's also on the Severin box set. Yeah. That's why I watch it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I kind of like the characters and the goofiness. I mean, it's a
very
little
oddball movie. Yeah.
There's apparently a movie that's either a remake of it or based on it. That's not supposed to be very good. Oh, I like Night Stalker better than Night Strangler.
100%.
I like Night Strangler, but it feels a lot more like a better episode of the series.
Yeah.
It's got padding to it. I mean, it's still got some good stuff in it because I mean, it's what's his face. It's Matheson is usually never less than interesting. His characters.
Right. I think really the villains are too similar. The way they're presented, I think that makes Strangler not as good.
And they don't really make great use of that location. The Seattle Underground. It doesn't read. I've seen that thing probably 5 times, and I can't tell you what the Seattle Underground is really like.
Well, because it's bad fucking sets. It's a cheap show.
It just did not work. But Night Strangler also just has a fantastic ending. Endings are hard to do, and the fact that they just pulled this kind of noir, gloomy ending out is terrific. You really feel for the character.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Valancourt, I would basically love to win a subscription to every Valancourt goddamn book. I've only got 2 of them, Swan Press, all those, I wish I could collect all that stuff because I've gotten book crazy. I wish I had all the Arkham stuff, Ash Tree Press, blah, 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 blah. I really like quiet horror. That's what a lot of the Ash Tree stuff is. Yeah, so I rewatched Dead of Night, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, cool.
I think Dead of Night is interesting because it's also a movie where, the segments are cool, but it also has a raps. I really like the rapping, rap story. I really enjoy the way those characters talk and the way that situation evolves. And of course, it's got the crazy ending. And I think that's probably like almost everything. But yeah, I really liked The White Reindeer quite a bit. There's some beautiful shots in that thing. And the funny thing is, reading about it afterwards, the guy who made it did not really make a lot of fiction films. He ended up going into documentary filmmaking. Yeah. Full time.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. It's got very little dialogue. It doesn't have a ton of dialogue. It's fascinating because even if you don't end up liking the film, it's based on Lapland folklore. If you understand the word, it's a very alien landscape and world.
Right.
It's not something I've ever seen before. I mean, it's one of the things that I was thinking about while watching The White Reindeer is how much I miss spectacle in movies because we don't do crowd shots anymore.
Do you mean just like literally just having people, like extra people in the movie?
Extra people, but they also are they reindeer, as you might guess, are very important to the film because they are so important to the reindeer are like cows or horses in a Western, there's huge runs of, they're capturing them, they're herding them, I don't know what you would call it, but they're doing like a reindeer run. Everybody is transport. Everybody uses the reindeer as transport. It's very important. And to see this huge herds of reindeer throughout the film, with people shepherding them, it's amazing. And now it would be like it'd be like the cows in Mars Attacks or something. It would be CGI. Nobody would put a cattle run on film today.
Right.
I mean, there's a sweet spot between what people like Otto Preminger did, where they would build interiors to facades that nobody would see because they were being bitchy crazy. You've got to build the apartment inside that thing, even though we have to have solidity, we have to have reality,
right.
And throw extras in and drown them in the silence. And what we have now, which is just video game crowds.
Well, my thing, I thought you were going. What I was thinking recently is I really hate the fact that movies just don't seem to have people and locations in them anymore. There's just there's 4 or 5 people, maybe there's 1 or 2 locations. That's fine. I don't, that's what you could afford. That's what you want to make. That's fine. But I look at movies like Night of the Creeps, which had no money in it, and it still looks
so
even Night of the Demons, the slasher one, the 80s one.
Right.
Which is mostly in a crappy house, still has a lot of sets. There's a lot of places they go. They're on the street, for Christ's sake.
There's a synthetic quality to a lot of films now that really gets under my skin. Because I don't believe the world. I feel like there's people on a green screen, or there are people on a set. And that doesn't bother me in a lot of crappy 50s horror movies or 60s or anything like that. I realized that one of the things that I really like about 70s and 80s horror, and one of the things I like about regional horror, is I like believing. I mean, Tucker and Dale, those places are real. The towns they drive through, the roads that they drive on, the cabin, whether they built the cabin or not, that's a location. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe they've shot some of that lake scene in a set. It's possible, but it looked good. I never felt like I was watching a synthetic film. It felt like these are leaves, those are trees, these are people. And I miss that kind of. Those were cheap films back then, but I believe these are people lost in the woods. These are people on a glacier. These are people in the town, and you believe the community. And I remember seeing shots from that recent Agatha Christie film that Kenneth Branagh, I think, is involved with.
Yeah, the Death on the Nile, or the
it looked like an 80s use of computer back. It looked horrible.
Yeah, it's amazing to use so much CGI for stories like that. I don't understand it,
I get it when you're watching something like Demons at the Door, where the whole thing
is
green.
Peter Ustinov Poirot movie looked better. A TV movie looked better than these, because it looks like you're looking like at a video game. But Branagh did that in the what do you call it? Murder on the Orient Express. He made it into almost an action film.
I didn't know that. I didn't even know that was remade. I didn't.
Yeah, that's so. Death on the Nile is the second one.
But Death on the Nile, the scenes from it look terrible. I mean, they just look absolutely, big washes of color that are supposed to be backgrounds, and just the pyramids, and it looks like.
It's the staircase in the remake of The Haunting. Remember?
That was but a lot of that movie at least was a set. It was a built set.
Yeah,
somebody, those horrible 13 Ghosts style movies, where it was like The Haunted Mansion or something. It was like the Haunting is terrible, but at least it feels. I felt like these were people in a place. It was phony. That movie looks like PBS, where they would show somebody talking, Sesame Street, and somebody's talking about ancient Greece or something, and they're color Kodachromed into a shot, and they're glowing around them. I mean, it looked fucking embarrassing. It's just boy, you miss when that's one thing about Shaun of the Dead that was pretty cool. Crowd scenes, they just got people.
Yeah, it's amazing. how they literally just don't have people in movies. You know, you'll see they'll shoot outside a building, and there'll be 2 people. You know,
or no, yeah, it's just there's a real phoniness, there's a real synthetic quality to so much stuff now that just leaves me. Even stuff with money, it just feels, I don't believe the world, because I feel like the camera is so tight on stuff, and they'll give you a drone shot, and then you get a lot of CGI stuff, and it's just, I understand if you have no money and you're filling stuff in. I mean, that's one thing. I'm also, if you think about it, Lake Mungo, not, going back to Borderlands, Lake Mungo, the 3 films that we covered don't have, a lot of effects, as far as they don't have CGI blood spatter. They don't have backgrounds filled in. I'm sure that there's work done on some of that. I'm sure that they juiced some of those shots in Lake Mungo, establishing houses, those really pretty stars. They may have manipulated things there, but it's not noticeable. I mean, everything is feels like the real world there, because they're taking cameras out and sticking them in place. Have you watched either of the Butterfly Kisses short interview, fake interviews?
Not yet.
They're not great, but they're interesting.
Yeah,
they're interesting, because we definitely we'll link to those. Paul will link to those. But there are, if you've seen Butterfly Kisses, there are 2 promotional videos on YouTube that Eric Christopher Myers made, where, as his character of the director of the Butterfly Kisses documentary about, I can't remember the character's name now, the character who he's following in the movie. These 2 interviews are cable access shows, where a guy who is writing a book on events in the movie is grilling him on this cable access show, and they've brought on a character that's in the movie for a short time, the character's mother-in-law, and they argue with him about the movie. And it's interesting, because it's like they talk about the 3-hour cut and things that he didn't use that show him being less scrupulous.
There you go.
Right, Gavin York. So there's 2 half-hour fake cable access shows that have Eric Christopher Myers on as a character, and he's in his scumbag phase. You'll know what that means if you watch the movie. He's got the baseball cap on, and they're interesting. Little extras about the movie that they laid out there, apparently, where they also laid out the legend of Peeping Tom as a stealth promotional campaign. And they actually got one author included Peeping Tom in a book on Maryland, like weird Maryland type stuff. She included Peeping Tom as an urban legend, not knowing it was fake. And she was very good natured about it when it was pointed out that it was fake. She thought it was marvelous that she got taken in.
Yeah.
About the legend of Peeping Tom. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I could wrap it up, because I can talk all night because I'm lonely.
Yeah. And the thing is, I try to watch Barbarian. Again, it's just a film that wasn't for me. I wanted to watch it. I didn't hate it. It just, I kind of wanted to watch something else.
I want to watch Barbarian because a movie that generates that, that's the thing. A movie like Midsummer, I haven't seen yet. Night Winky. A movie like, what's the other one?
Heredity.
And Barbarian. It's generated so much interesting talk that's not of the, oh man, that was, they're not just saying, oh, I like the way the heads exploded, which is actually fine too. But if it generates that kind of buzz and people are really interested in it, and it's also interesting to see how many people are really trying to, on these films, that people are trying to not spoil them for others.
Yeah.
It seems interesting to me that lately with horror movies, I've noticed more and more people are like going cold, and they're being really respectful of other viewers, which is cool, because it used to be much tougher to avoid spoilers on Twitter or social media. And people seem to be really kind of more or less in agreement to kind of let people enjoy it, which is not what fandom is usually like.
Right.
Really surprised that I know very little about, I know nothing about Heredity. I know very little about Midsummer, and I know nothing about Barbarian. And that's not just on ignorance, because it's like people seem to love this movie Pearl, and it turns out it's a prequel to something that I don't
to
even.
X.
I didn't know about X at
And
all.
there's gonna be one more.
Sure, of course, everything has to have one more, except for Tucker and Dale, which should have one more. But
Oh, that's cool.
nice.
Yep, because
That's awesome.
that's how folklore works. You know.
Right.
Now we have enough information to find sometimes how these actually originate.
Hopefully, nobody will make a goddamn movie about it without your involvement, because it's amazing. Everybody is the way movies. You look at Tubi and it's just like urban legend, ghost story, urban legend, serial killer. It's like some people doing Google searches trying to find, fucking everybody knows about chupacabras. Now I'm waiting for the Hodag movie. When is somebody gonna make a movie about fake lumberjack?
The Womp Cat. What's his name? Womp Cat.
No, wait, that was the one they made that though. That was the I want that shirt too, that T-shirt. But there's the Splinter Cats. There's all these weird lumberjack guy. I was researching. I came across that stuff for doing some Beasts of Burden, looking some stuff up. But Splinter Cats. There's one that's like a scarf creature that will strangle you. I feel like Manly Wade Wellman used similar type stuff in the John the Balladeer. The Behinder reminds me a lot of those. It's always behind you, and if you see it, you'll die. Stuff like that. And but yeah, I had a good Halloween run. Unfortunately, a lot of it was because of I think the two movies that I want to mention is as being like serious movies that worked for me was A Dark Song. Have you seen that?
No.
I was going back and forth on liking it, not liking it, liking it, not liking it, and eventually it won me over. The characters are tough. I think they call it a two-hander in England, if it's two people in a play or two people on a television play, but it's largely a two-hander, or two characters. Why don't I just say that then? And they're both tough characters to deal with, intentionally so, but they're written well. And there's some choices in the movie that I'm still not sure whether I like them or not, but on the whole, the thing stuck with me, and it was tense. And I got involved with it. I liked it on the whole. I felt a lot the same as the movie Saint Maud.
Okay.
Which was where I'm just not sure where my entry point to this is, and I'm not sure if I like these people, but the movie is working on some level for me that I almost can't describe. And His House, I liked quite a bit. Not every choice, again, but these were interesting movies. That's the one about African refugees who were given a house in England.
Right.
Stuff happens. It's different from the usual small movie haunted house. There's some super striking imagery in there, and some interesting choices for the characters and for the viewer, on things the characters did or trying to do, without trying to spoil it. I'm obviously digging around it, but I thought these were interesting films with some, mostly successful and not the average stuff.
Cool.
You're looking for something that's, a little harsh, but not mean-spirited, if that makes any sense. But Dark Song is interesting because a lot of it is you spending time with these two people doing a ritual. It's much prolonged. It's from what I understand, because I really don't care about that sort of stuff. Nothing against anybody who is, but it's not like true to life for real ritual magic, because they really, even I could tell, because at one point they're writing Japanese stuff, and I'm assuming that has nothing to do with this particular kind of, but it's pretty deep. Most movies, a ritual takes place over the course of a minute or two, or there's, everybody's in the robes. But this movie is deeply about them doing this purification rituals and these. I forget what the name of it is, but it's a real thing. that occultists do,
Right.
and people who believe in magic do. And while they cobble it together with some other stuff, I think it's a really, really tense, weird film with good performances, and they're interesting.
Right.
So that was
Cool.
that.
No, I'll check those out. Those look interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately for me, I really didn't have a film that I thought really I saw for the first time over the holidays that knocked me out. I mean, I guess the thing I liked the most, I guess, was the whatchamacallit, the Halloween mixtape.
oh, that was I wasn't going to get into that because I figured we could almost do an episode on those two because they're interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in there. Because I didn't love the first one, but I love the way it was done.
Yeah, and
The and
I think I love the second one, you know.
I really enjoyed the second one because I think it's a weird instance to see some people make a sequel where they kind of listened to people, maybe not necessarily fans, but they went, what didn't work in the first one? Let's tighten it up. And this is a film where these are films that are made to look like old 80s. The first one is an old 80s, almost like it's an SCTV.
It's like a UHS tape. It's if someone had found a tape from 80 whatever it is, 88, and it's a Halloween special, and
Yeah.
it has the news, it has commercials, and it also has a kind of ghost watch story where
Yeah.
they're going in
Kinda
live.
like an American Ghost Watch. It's goofy, and
Yeah.
the problem for me was that they overdo they overdo certain elements. They're realistic, but because the breaks are a little more often than in real TV of the 80s, there's a repetition that comes in. Some of it warranted. I kind of like the idea that they actually went and repeated a couple of commercials. They repeat the carpet
Yeah.
commercial.
Yeah, but the problem with that for me, and I think Evan, you had the same problem, was that kind of the conclusion ending really just didn't work.
Yeah,
That
the through line of the
Yeah.
movie is that they're doing a live haunted house examination. The local TV, the local online. I don't even know what to call it. A guy from local television goes into a haunted house. They have two occultists there who've written this. They do it really well, but the actual horror story angle is not done well.
Right. So we're in the sequel, which is Out There Halloween Mega Tape is the name of it.
It's the 90s. It's like 10 years later.
What's interesting about that is, it updates everything. So instead of it like a UHF or a local station, it's like now it's like an affiliate.
Yeah, it's like a Fox or a UPN affiliate, which is very it's smart.
And the commercials are interesting because they don't fool you into thinking you're watching 90s commercials, but they very much understand the tropes of it. Like there's a trucking school commercial. And you have to understand, if you're of our age, I mean, if you're as old as us, you watch TV, you remember there were
how did the trucking start? Remember how the trucking ad started? The one sandwiches again.
That's it. I have that in a playlist of old commercials. Yeah,
sandwiches again. Well, we don't have enough money, but you should become a trucker. The really nice thing that they do is that they actually, as a sequel to the first movie, they continue the story, but they do it in a really almost subtle way. They will bring back character.
Yeah, I have not seen that.
I had heard of that. Yes. Sorry, one of the cat that attacks the Nutmeg just walked in, so I'm just trying to make sure that Winky doesn't get attacked. Yeah, but I thought the second one was really smart because they basically went, all right, we did a few too many commercials in the first one. Let's shorten the break to the main TV show so that people don't see. But what was really cool is that they brought back some of the people, even some people who had small roles in the first movie. They show that they've gotten like new jobs.
Right.
Some of them are now in syndicated shows and working. Some of them have gotten talk shows. Some of them have lost their jobs. The carpet guy from the first one, they show more commercials by him, but then there's a news thing about him getting busted for possible drug trafficking. And he does an ad that makes fun of him getting arrested. It's really well done. They also have a Don Doler regular playing a celebrity B-movie. And it's really funny because he does the trivia. He goes, hi. The acting, everything is more sure-footed.
Right. It feels like that whole stuff feels like that weird early Sci-Fi Channel stuff when it tried to do other weird stuff.
Yep. The thing that's also really cool about it is that I didn't ever think that I was watching something from the 90s.
Right.
But I found in the second one that I was slipping into this mindset that I was watching actual old television shows.
Yeah, they
After
did
a
it
while,
really well.
It made you feel like you were watching an hour and a half of a television station.
Right, and the through line in this, because the way this works too is you see like a news broadcast, you see like part of a show and commercials, then you see
this one starts with like the local Ricky Lake type show.
And the interesting thing about that, the interesting thing about that is the eventual conclusion of that story is actually a little lighter and works. I think it works.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this one instead of having a horror angle has a science fiction horror angle. But they also talk about some things come up from the first movie.
Oh yeah, it's
there's
interesting.
And it just taken together they really work.
Yeah.
They're super cheap. They had a lot of people work. It's kind of like, I guess, like an ABCs of Death, except instead of doing horror stories, they got a lot of people to make a commercial for it. Or a lot of people to do a segment, a fake movie. They also do promos for the movie of the week that they're showing, and some of them are very funny.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like watching a less over the top SCTV, like the SCTV on the air. They have the same personalities, and I found myself feeling sometimes like I was watching SCTV.
Right.
Except that it wasn't in your face comedic. It was winking all the time. Some of the ads don't have jokes in them. It's just the presentation.
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing. It really is just supposed to be like, these were commercials. There were, I don't think there was a waterbed commercial, but that kind of thing.
Some of the anti-drug PSAs are very funny because they're just not funny. They're really like, I could believe that they would show this Halloween PSA for not doing drugs back in the 90s. It's really well done. It's very funny.
Yeah. Well, we probably should wrap it up. We've done 3 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh shit. Yeah. Well, happy Halloween. I hope everybody had a good Halloween, a fun season. Keep watching horror movies, obviously.
Thanks for joining us. We had a good group today. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. And Paul's working on editing the Butterfly Kisses episode, so episode 20 is coming up.
And I'm nowhere where I want to be by now, but it'll get out.
We got 2 episodes done. You got 2.
You got 2 episodes and a goddamn live stream. You sons of bitches.
And thanks for thanks for folks sticking with us the whole time. We hope you had a fun night.
Yeah.
Hanging out with us.
Yeah.
And I love talking horror movies with everybody. And please, I think we forget to mention, where you can write us if we have any questions or recommendations or. Thank you so much. I got some nice emails on the episodes, and some people who decided to check out Lake Mungo and the Borderlands.
Yeah.
And that's really the fun thing. I mean, it's fun to. I realized that it's funny. I was telling Paul, it's like Tear Them Apart was like a name based on how we used to kind of more go about things back in the day, where we'd really rip stuff up because we didn't like it and really enjoy. But it's like, it's also now a dissecting things we like show more than I expected.
Yeah, I think you were worried about the name with some of the directions, but it works. It all works.
I was like, now we tear them apart to see how they tick rather than necessarily. But I'm sure we'll tear apart some stuff that we can't stand. Hi, here's Winky one more time. Hold on. It's Winky the Pirate Carol.
Hi,
baby. And we'll see you soon with episode 20, and maybe we'll do another video cast soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much, everybody. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks. We'll see you soon. Check us out on Twitter.
Bye-bye. Take care, all.
And I'm